Chapter 40. The lobby of Launching Restaurant was about 6 to 700 square meters. 3 of them were used to welcome guests and register, while the other 2/3 were a simple restaurant. When they arrived, Nian Bing took a quick look around the restaurant. The decorations in the restaurant could only be described as terrible. The long wooden tables had long been exposed, and the legs of the long chairs seemed like they could break at any time. The surrounding walls were so dilapidated that even the walls were not finished. How could such a place be called a restaurant? If the guest rooms were not clean and not expensive, Nian Bing would definitely not choose to stay here. However, the scene in front of him made him somewhat unable to believe his eyes. It was just evening, and there was already a long line at the entrance of the restaurant. The restaurant was already full of people, and there were at least 10 waiters busily shuttling back and forth. It was a lively scene. How could there be so many guests in such a rundown place? Some of the guests were dressed very gorgeously. This could only prove one thing, and that was that this rundown restaurant had a secret to its business. It was definitely related to food. What kind of delicious food could attract so many guests? Nian Bing's curiosity was instantly piqued. He walked to the counter in the lobby and asked the waitress behind the counter, "Why are there so many guests in your restaurant? Is there anything good to eat here?" The waitress looked at Nian Bing's handsome face and couldn't help but blush. She said proudly, "Sir, you must be from another city. In our Ice Orchid City, our launching restaurant's grilled chicken wings and the glaring food restaurant's glaring food restaurant are 2 of the most famous delicacies in Ice Orchid City. You don't know how many people come here just to eat our launching chicken wings." Oh, the waitress's words piqued Nian Bing's interest. With such delicious chicken wings, he had to try them today. Thinking of this, he wasn't in a hurry. He quickly ran to the long line outside the restaurant and waited patiently. After exiting the lobby, although he was at the back of the line, Nian Bing could see the scene in front of the restaurant just by tilting his body. The chicken wings were waiting to be grilled. The aroma of the barbecue continued to spread out. Through observation, he discovered that the barbecued chicken wings here didn't have the root of the wings at the back and the tip of the wings at the front. There was only the middle of the wings. With this as the raw material, it was no wonder that it was famous in Ice Orchid City. There were 2 chefs in charge of the barbecue. They moved very quickly and kept turning the wings on the grill. Each skewer had 1 or 2 wings, and each skewer had 2 bamboo skewers. This way, the chicken wings could be placed steadily on the stove while roasting. From her craftsmanship, Nian Bing didn't find anything special. He didn't believe that the roasted chicken wing that attracted so many customers was just that, so he continued to observe patiently. Finally, after careful observation, Nian Bing discovered the secret of the launching chicken wings, which was the sauce. Every time the chicken wings were about to be cooked, the 2 chefs would take the chicken wings from the charcoal stove and brush a layer of sauce on the back of the stove. After brushing the sauce on the chicken wings and roasting them, they would emit a sweet aroma, and the color of the chicken wings would change from its original golden color to brown. After roasting them for a while, they would be done. That's right. The secret must be in the sauce. This sauce must have been mixed with special techniques. Seeing this, Nian Bing was determined to try it. He wasn't in a hurry and waited patiently in line. Roasting the chicken wings required time. When Nian Bing started to line up, there was still some afterglow of the setting sun in the sky. However, by the time it was his turn, the sky was completely dark. Looking back at the long line behind him, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It was indeed good that the business had reached this stage. "Sir, what kind of chicken wings do you want? How many skewers do you want? Do you want to eat here or take away?" The waiter in charge of collecting money asked Nian Bing politely. After coming back to his senses, Nian Bing said, "How many types of chicken wings do you have here? I want a skewer of each type. I'll eat here." The waiter said, "Okay, there are a total of 4 types of chicken wings. They are divided into original, mild spicy, single-side spicy, and double-side spicy. Are you sure you want a skewer of each type? Our mild spicy chicken wings are the best-selling here, and the taste is more moderate." Nian Bing smiled and said, "Of course. I also came here because of its reputation, so I naturally want to try each type. How much is it?" The waiter glanced at Nian Bing with a peculiar expression before saying with a smile, We have a rule at launching restaurant. You must finish all the chicken wings you've bought, especially if you're dining at a restaurant. Nian Bing nodded and said, Okay, please hurry up. How much is it? The waiter said, The chicken wings are 3 copper coins per skewer, so 4 skewers are a total of 1 silver coin and 2 copper coins. There are no more seats inside now, so please wait here for a while. Nian Bing paid and stood at the side to wait. As he came to the front, this time he saw the sauce clearly. In a barrel-shaped condiment box, there was a thick dark brown sauce. The chef used a brush to brush the sauce on the chicken wings that were about to be roasted. Smelling the strange, sweet fragrance, Nian Bing continuously tried to guess the real ingredient in the condiment, but he still couldn't make a definite judgment. It seemed that he really had to eat it to confirm it. Finally, the 4 skewers of chicken wings that belonged to Nian Bing were ready. When the chicken wings were handed to Nian Bing, he couldn't help but be stunned. At this moment, he completely understood what single-side spicy was and what double-side spicy was. The original chicken wings were the finished product after the sauce was brushed and roasted. The mild spicy referred to the sprinkling of a small amount of chili powder on the base of the original flavor, while the single-side spicy was already very terrifying. One side of the chicken wing was completely covered by chili. As for the double-side spicy, Nian Bing clearly saw that after the chicken wings were roasted, the chef spun the entire skewer of chicken wings in the bag of chili. Almost every part of the chicken wings was completely covered by chili due to the viscosity of the sauce on the chicken wings. Oh my God, can this thing be eaten? Looking at Nian Bing's puzzled eyes, the waiter smiled. Sir, there are no seats inside now. Please stand and eat first. We have a rule here. If you can finish a skewer of double-side spicy chicken wings, we will give you another skewer. Nian Bing looked at the chicken wings in his hand. He first took out the original skewer and took a bite. Suddenly, a thick, sweet fragrance filled his taste awareness. It was indeed delicious, but at the same time, Nian Bing also found the weakness of this chicken wing. Soon, a skewer of original chicken wings entered his stomach. To be able to let Nian Bing eat it so quickly, this chicken wing naturally had its own uniqueness. When a skewer of chicken wings was finished, Nian Bing finally determined the composition of the sauce. No wonder it was so sweet. It turned out that there were at least 6 kinds of herbs in this sauce. Moreover, each of the herbs complemented each other. Not only was it good for improving the taste, but it also had a good warming effect on the human body. It was indeed unique. Smiling slightly, Nian Bing picked up the slightly spicy chicken wings and began to eat. There was a little spicy taste in the sweetness, eating it to his satisfaction. No wonder the waiter mainly introduced this kind of food just now. The taste was indeed delicious. If it wasn't for the chef's craftsmanship, it should be able to reach a higher level. Finally, he picked up the skewer of single-side spicy. Suddenly, he felt a little scared and tentatively took a small bite. When it entered his mouth, there was no special feeling. It was not even as spicy as the previous skewer. But at the moment when he was surprised, the spicy taste was like a flame erupting, making him suddenly open his mouth wide, as if his mouth could spit fire. Nian Bing gasped for breath. Heavens, was this thing for humans to eat? It was so spicy. Water, water, Nian Bing shouted loudly. The kind waiter held back his laughter and poured a cup of tea for him. Sweat flowed down his forehead. Nian Bing's heart was sweating. Just a small bite was enough to make his snot and tears flow together. He immediately determined that this crazy spicy chili was definitely different from the previous, slightly spicy chicken wings. It was a very special kind of chili. It was undeniable that it was very fragrant, but the degree of spiciness was something Nian Bing had never heard of before. Heavens, my poor mouth. At this moment, he seemed to feel that his lips were starting to swell. Was this a delicacy or poison? After drinking a cup of tea, Nian Bing's stomach began to burn. He was unwilling to be left behind. The power of the chili was indeed extraordinary. Looking at the remaining chicken wings in his hand, he really did not have the courage to take a second bite, not to mention the double spicy one. He tested the waiter and said, I'm sorry, I really can't eat anymore. The waiter smiled and said, I was just joking with you. There's a seat over there. Would you like a few more chicken wings? These can be put aside for now. Nian Bing heaved a sigh of relief. Under the guidance of the waiter, he sat down at a seat near the window and said, "Then give me a few more of the original flavor." After tasting the chicken wings, his impression of this launching chicken wing shop increased greatly. It was not because of anything else, but just the 6 kinds of herbs. Although the value was not very high, it greatly increased the cost of roasted chicken wings. The profit was much smaller than ordinary roasted chicken wings. To be so considerate of his customers, the owner of this shop was indeed a kind person. The power of the chili gradually subsided. Nian Bing really wanted to try the taste of the double spicy chicken wings, but he really could not muster up the courage. At this moment, it was the turn of 2 girls to buy chicken wings. One of the girls said, "I heard that you sell the best quality chicken wings here. Give me a stick of the best quality." As soon as she said that, the inside and outside of the restaurant fell into a complete silence. Everyone looked at the 2 ordinary-looking girls as if they were looking at monsters. "What are you looking at? Don't tell me you don't have the best quality? The 2 of us have loved eating chili since we were young. This time, we specially came here to taste it." The waiter did not say much and nodded to the chef. In a short while, 10 sticks of chicken wings were in the hands of the 2 girls. Holding the chicken wings, the 2 girls were completely stunned. One of them said in a daze, "Where were these chicken wings?" The so-called best quality was the double spicy chicken wings. The chicken wings were completely covered in chili. From the outside, they really could not see the chicken wings. As soon as she said that, it immediately caused a roar of laughter. The waiter smiled and said, "The chicken wings are inside the chili. The chili is added when the sauce is thick. This is the best quality that you want. Please try it." The girl on the left gritted her teeth and said, "I don't believe that this can be spicy." As she said that, she took a big bite of the chicken wing. Nian Bing stared at the girl with wide eyes. He really admired the girl's courage. Soon, Nian Bing saw the consequences of eating a big bite of the best quality chicken wing. The girl cried, but not because she was sad. Tears and snot flowed uncontrollably. Her mouth was wide open and she kept breathing out, but she could not even say a word. Nian Bing clearly saw that her tongue seemed to be a little swollen. He really wondered if this girl would spit out fire. Shaking his head in amusement, Nian Bing knew that he should leave. He had completely understood the mystery of the chicken wings, but before he left, he wanted to do something for the restaurant. Walking in front of the girl who could not stand the spiciness, his right hand condensed a piece of ice and stuffed it into her mouth. "This should be better. In the future, don't be so impulsive. The chili here is really very strong." The waiter looked at Nian Bing in surprise. She really could not understand where the ice came from. Nian Bing smiled and said, "Can you let me grill a few chicken wings myself? I'm willing to pay double the price." Upon hearing that, a look of vigilance appeared on the waiter's face. She shook her head and said, "I'm sorry. The sauce of our restaurant's grilled chicken wings is a secret recipe, so outsiders are not allowed to come near." Nian Bing interrupted her and said, "Don't worry. I don't need your sauce." As he said that, he walked to the 2 chefs, picked up 5 raw chicken wings, and placed them on the charcoal fire. The chef who was near Nian Bing frowned and asked, "What are you doing?" A warm smile appeared in Nian Bing's eyes as he said, "I want you to know how to make better chicken wings." The chef laughed out loud and said, "What a joke. Our launching restaurant's chicken wings are famous all over the world. We have the reputation of being the best chicken wing in the world. Do we need you to teach us?" Nian Bing said calmly, "Foolish arrogance will make your taste deteriorate. Although the chili is the best, it overshadows the taste of the chicken wings. Since you think you're the best in the world, why don't you let me have a try? And the judges will be the customers here. If you lose, I don't want anything. If I lose, I'm willing to pay the price of 1 purple gold coin. How's that?" The chef said angrily, "Are you here to pick a fight?" Nian Bing shook his head and said, "No, I said, I'm here to teach you how to grill chicken wings." Looking at the chicken wings grilled by the chef on the charcoal fire, he smiled faintly and said, "Chicken wings are not grilled like this. Look carefully, I'm only going to make it once." As he said that, Nian Bing's right hand grabbed the chicken wing that was being heated on the charcoal fire and spun it quickly. Every side of the chicken wing was on the charcoal fire for less than a second. The 2 chefs stopped what they were doing and looked at him with a cold smile. They wanted to see how Nian Bing would make a fool of himself. Nian Bing's movements were very simple, and any ordinary person could do it. However, the difficult part was the rhythm of his spinning. From the beginning to the end, his speed was always the same, and there was not the slightest change. The two chefs who were roasting the chicken wings were not mediocre. Soon, the contempt in their eyes disappeared and was replaced with a serious expression. Nian Bing's movements were very relaxed. When the color of the chicken wings started to turn yellow, his movements changed. 5 skewers of chicken wings were placed on the charcoal fire. He began to turn them one by one, from left to right, in a continuous cycle. The rhythm was still stable, and each skewer of chicken wings was grilled for a longer time than before. The chef closest to Nian Bing said, doubtfully, "Even if you're more skilled and can grill the chicken wings more evenly, the taste won't be much different from ours. As long as you're not a real gourmet, you won't be able to tell the difference. Also, you'll get tired easily. Do you know how many sales we make in a day?" Nian Bing smiled and said while grilling the chicken wings, "It's not like what you think. The real key hasn't started yet. You can rest assured that I won't use your sauce. Just a little salt and cumin will be enough." Soon, the difference between Nian Bing's chicken wings and the two chefs was revealed. When the two chefs grilled the chicken wings, they began to brush some oil on the wings to make them more fragrant and tender. However, Nian Bing did not do that. He just sped up the speed of turning the chicken wings. With a smile, Nian Bing's eyes revealed a faint light. The key part was here. When the chicken wings turned golden, when the fragrance began to spread, the ghost eagle jumped into his hand without warning. Nian Bing quickly made 3 horizontal and 3 vertical cuts on the chicken wing. His movements were smooth, and he did not stop at all. Everyone could only see a blue light flash across the chicken wing. The chicken wings had been turned over. The same movement appeared on the other side of the chicken wings. The ghost eagle disappeared. Nian Bing continued to turn the chicken wings. Did you see it clearly? The chicken wings have the most oil in it. There's no need to brush the oil. When the chicken wings turn golden, make some cuts. Cut a few slits on the chicken wing so that the fat in the chicken wing can be fully integrated into the chicken wing, so that the taste of the chicken will be more uniform and the chicken wing will be more flavorful. Speaking of this, he grabbed a handful of cumin and evenly sprinkled it on both sides of the chicken wings. When the chicken wings were turned over again, he sprinkled salt and continued to grill. Grilling chicken wings doesn't need to add too many ingredients because the chicken wings themselves are already very good. Brushing the sauce can make the taste of the chicken wings more fragrant, but it only highlights the word sweet. The whole chicken wing is full of the taste of the sauce. However, it loses the fragrance of the chicken wings and the charred smell of the chicken wings outside. Although it's praiseworthy to add herbs that are beneficial to the human body in the sauce, as a chef, taste is still the most important. Okay, please try the supreme-grade chicken wings that I grilled. The chicken wings left the stove and rose. Nian Bing handed 2 of the skewers to the 2 chefs. The remaining 3 skewers were given to the waiter, and the other 2 skewers were given to the customer at the front of the line. Nian Bing tossed a purple gold coin, and it landed on the counter in front of the waiter. He walked out of the crowd and strode away. Boos sounded at the same time that Nian Bing left. More than 80% of the customers thought that he had taken the initiative to admit defeat. Nian Bing didn't care about the false reputation. He walked on the street and headed towards the brightly lit street. Wow, this is so delicious. It smells so good. I've never eaten such delicious chicken wings before. A customer who was lucky enough to get a chicken wing exclaimed. At this moment, the 2 chefs from Launching Restaurant were already in a daze. Although the aroma of the chicken wing wasn't very sweet, it perfectly reflected the aroma of the chicken wing itself. In addition to the crispy skin and tender chicken meat, it was just as Nian Bing had said. This was the real deal of grilled chicken wings. The 2 chefs looked at each other, and one of them said, "I'm sorry, dear customers. We decided to temporarily close today. Tomorrow, we'll be releasing new grilled chicken wings." After saying that, the 2 of them immediately walked to the back hall. There was only one thing they had to do now, and that was to record Nian Bing's every move in detail. Nian Bing's culinary skills had completely won them over. All of this was within Yin Bing's expectations. He did this to show his appreciation for the restaurant's sincerity in treating its customers. He believed that as long as the two chefs weren't fools, they would definitely be able to learn a lot from his actions. They would also be able to increase the number of ways to roast chicken wings. He hoped that their business would improve. After all, there weren't many businesses that didn't seek profit above all else. As he walked, he suddenly saw a restaurant not far ahead. He wasn't full from the chicken wings just now. Instead, it was so spicy that he almost cried. At this moment, his stomach was already complaining. The reason why that restaurant attracted Yanbing was because of its signboard. The signboard was very simple. There were only 4 big words on it. First class noodle. First class? Since they dared to call themselves first class, it was obvious that the owner of this restaurant had absolute confidence in the food in his restaurant. He had to go in and take a look. As a noodle dish, there were many tricks involved. Nianbing was also the least proficient in noodle dishes. The business of first-class noodle was worlds apart from that of Lanshin restaurant. There were only a few tables of customers, and most of them only had a bowl of noodles in front of them. "Sir, you're here. What would you like to eat?" A waiter came up to him politely. Nianbing walked to a table and sat down. He smiled and said, "What you best at here?" The waiter smiled and said, "Of course it's noodles. We have all kinds of noodle dishes here. There's nothing that you can't imagine. However, our prices are relatively higher. The price of any noodle dish is 1 gold coin." "What? 1 gold coin? Why don't you just rob me?" Nian Bing stared at the waiter with his eyes wide open. One didn't know that 1 gold coin was enough to eat a good meal, but here it was only enough to buy a bowl of noodles. No wonder there were so few customers. However, Nian Bing soon noticed a problem. Most of the customers in the restaurant were old people, and all of them were dressed gorgeously. We cried out in surprise. The old man was shocked. When she exclaimed, they looked at her with contempt. The smile on the waiter's face disappeared. As the saying goes, women dress up for those who love them, and men die for those who understand them. "Sir, since you're doubting our prices, you can leave now. We don't welcome customers like you." Nian Bing was stunned. How could they chase customers away when they were open for business? This first-class noodle restaurant was indeed strange. She had to try it and see what was so special about it. She smiled. She said, "I'm sorry I was rude just now. I just didn't expect the prices of ground food here to be so high." The waiter looked at Nian Bing in surprise. Clearly, he didn't expect Nian Bing to decide to stay. She had already apologized. What else could he say? He had no choice but to say, "Sir, what would you like to eat? We can let you choose any noodle dish you want." Nian Bing smiled and said, "Then give me 3 dishes. I want 5 golden incense rings, 5 rolls of donkey rolls, and a plate of ginger ribs. Please hurry up. Thank you." When the waiter heard that Nian Bing had ordered these 3 types of food, his face immediately revealed a look of surprise. He had worked here for a long time and naturally knew what kind of ground food was more difficult. Nian Bing had ordered these 3 types of noodles. He had only heard of the golden incense rings, but he had never heard of the other 2. His eyes showed hesitation and said, "I'm sorry, sir. Can you please pay first?" Nian Bing took out 3 gold coins from her bosom and handed it to him. She said, "Is it okay now?" The waiter nodded and said, "Please wait a moment. It will be ready in a moment." After the waiter left, Nian Bing looked around. The decoration of this restaurant was simple and unadorned. The ground was covered with brown wooden flooring, and all the tables and chairs were made of wood. The whole restaurant looked very clean. In the innermost place, there was a calligraphy piece with the words "first grade" written on it. The words were vigorous and powerful, looking very imposing. The 3 types of noodles that Nian Bing had chosen were unique snacks from different parts of the continent. When Cha Ji was teaching him how to cook, he had said that as long as he could make these 3 types of noodles well, he would be considered to have passed the test in terms of time spent eating. These 3 different dishes were the best way to test a chef's level. "Hey, is there anyone here? I'm starving. Give me a bowl of noodles." A clear voice rang out, causing the diners to look towards the entrance. Nian Bing's entire body shuddered when he heard the voice. When he saw the red figure standing at the entrance, he couldn't help but groan inwardly and hurriedly lower his head. However, She was sitting very close to the door, and her blonde hair was extremely rare in the Ice Moon Empire, so she immediately attracted the attention of the people who came. A surprised voice rang out. Nianbing, that's great. I've finally found you. Looks like my luck is pretty good. The person who had suddenly appeared at the door was the young mistress of the Cool Breeze Temple, Xuejing. From her travel-worn appearance, it could be seen that she had run very quickly along the way. Her red warrior clothes outlined her perfect curves. Although she looked a little tired, it didn't reduce her heroic spirit in the slightest. Since she had been recognized, Nianbing had no choice but to stand up and greet her. Silence. Why are you here? Xuejing was in a good mood when she saw Nianbing. She smiled and said, Isn't it because I'm looking for you? You left without saying a word. If Ling didn't tell me, I wouldn't have known that you really left. You're really heartless. Feeling the strange gazes of the diners, they seemed to be doubtful. How could such a beautiful girl be abandoned? Nianbing couldn't help but feel awkward. She smiled bitterly and said, My dear, can you watch your words? We're just ordinary friends. Don't make it sound like a resentful wife. Bah! Xuejing's face turned red. She said in a bad mood, Who's a resentful wife? You're dreaming. I'm here to take you back. If you don't come back with me to Qing Feng Zhai, I'll follow you around and annoy you to death every day. Her voice was very loud. Some diners already had smiles on their faces. Nianbing pulled Xuejing to her table and sat down. Miss, I'm not deaf. I can hear you if you lower your voice. Xuejing's eyes suddenly turned red. She said in a wrong tone, I didn't expect you to leave just like that. Am I that annoying to you? Nianbing shook her head and said in a low voice, No, don't misunderstand. I had no choice but to leave Ice Snow City. I think that not long after I left, Ice Snow City received a decree from the king to summon me. I don't want to lose my freedom. Besides, my ambition has always been to travel the continent and learn the best of everyone's culinary skills. Didn't I tell you very clearly back then? Xuejing snorted and said, I don't care. Anyway, if you don't come back with me, I'll travel the continent with you. I want to have more fun anyway. Nianbing smiled bitterly and said, How can that be? You're a girl. If you follow a man like me around every day, people will gossip. Aren't you afraid that Yanfeng will be jealous? Xuejing's eyes revealed a strange light. Nianbing, tell me honestly, do you hate me? Her voice was very calm, but the light in her eyes showed that she was serious. Nianbing paused and said, At first, I hated your temper. However, I later found out that although your temper is bad, you're lively, cheerful, and kind-hearted. You're really a good girl. Xuejing sighed in relief and said in a low voice, Actually, I've always known that my reputation as a crazy woman is not good. I'm afraid that a large part of your reason for leaving Ice Snow City is to avoid me. Nianbing said helplessly, Why do you always say that? I've said many times. I left Ice Snow City for my own reasons. It has nothing to do with you. We're already friends. Why would I care about what happened in the past? Xuejing smiled. You said it yourself. Since that's the case, let me travel the continent with you. When Ice Snow City's limelight is over, you can come back with me to be a chef. Or we can find a place to open a restaurant. I'll pay for it, and you'll be the major shareholder. How about that? I'll let you have half of the shares, and you'll have the final say in the kitchen. Chapter 41. Nianbing's heart could not help but clench when he heard this. Frankly speaking, the main reason why he had left Ice Snow City was because of himself. However, there was another reason, and that was to avoid these extremely attractive beauties. He knew that although beauties were good, they would cause him to lose his willpower. He never thought that Xuejing would actually chase after him and even want to travel the mainland with him. How could he agree to this? Silence. Don't be like this. My master once told me that my culinary skills are already good enough, but I still need to comprehend more before I can reach the peak of culinary skills. So, I still need to travel the continent for at least 7 to 8 years. You can't always follow me. Xuejing smiled and said, Why not? In any case, you won't be able to shake me off. No matter how many years it takes, I'll follow you. If you feel that it's inconvenient, you can marry me. I'll suffer a bit and marry you, how about that? Nianbing was speechless. He was really afraid of Xuejing. He smiled bitterly and said, "Don't joke around. How can I be worthy of you? Young miss, I beg you to let me go. Did Uncle Shui agree to you coming out to find me like this?" Xuejing stuck out her tongue and said, "What's there to not be worthy of? I think you think that I'm not worthy of you. I snuck out, but I left a letter for my father." Nian Bing was delighted. At this moment, he had already recovered from the shock of Xuejing's appearance. He immediately put on a sorrowful expression and looked at Xuejing without saying a word. Xuejing was stunned and said, "Nian Bing, what's wrong?" Nian Bing sighed and said, "Silence, you're really wrong. How could you run away from home? Uncle Shui only has you as his daughter, and he has placed all his hopes on you. He's already over 60 years old today. As his daughter, you should stay by his side and be filial to him. Why did you sneak out to find me? Have you ever thought about how worried Uncle Shui is?" When Xuejing heard Nian Bing mention her father, she immediately lowered her head. Although she had a bad temper, she was very filial to her father. She said in a low voice, "I don't want to, but when you suddenly called, I felt as if the entire Clear Wind study was empty, so I decided to come out and look for you. I think father will definitely forgive me." Nian Bing didn't need to deliberately adjust her emotions. Once she thought of her parents, her face immediately showed genuine emotions. "Silence, compare to me. You're already so lucky. Do you know how much I want to be with my parents? But I can't do it. If my parents can be safe, I'm willing to give up everything I have now and stay by their side to fulfill my filial piety. How I want to see my father and mother again. But that's impossible." The sorrowful aura was so real. At this moment, he was no longer pretending. Thinking of his parents, a strong hatred for the Ice God Tower surged in his heart. Feeling Nian Bing's sorrowful aura, Xuejing couldn't help but be stunned. "Nian Bing, what's wrong with you? Where are your parents? I've never heard you talk about your family matters." Nian Bing took a deep breath and said, "I can't be sure if they're dead or alive. Although I know where they fell, I can't go and look for them now." "Silence. Do you know what kind of people I hate the most? They were unfilial children. Now that you have your father at home, how worried would Uncle Shui be if you secretly left? Listen to me. Rest in Ice Orchid City for the night and quickly go back tomorrow. Also, send my regards to Uncle Shui. After I return from my travels on the continent, I will definitely go to the Clear Wind study to see you." Nian Bing's voice was very sincere, but Xuejing felt that something was wrong. Before she decided to leave Ice Snow City, she had gone to look for Luo Ro. Otherwise, she wouldn't know the direction Nian Bing left in. Luo Ro had once told her that Nian Bing was not a simple person. If she wanted to look for him, she must be careful and not believe Nian Bing's words. Xuejing thought for a while and said, "Nian Bing, how about this? I'll write a letter to my father tomorrow and tell him that I'm safe. Then, I'll go to the Ottoman Empire with you." Nian Bing said that you'll send a letter over on her behalf. "After you send the letter, I'll go back, okay?" Her eyes revealed a trace of gentleness, and the crazy woman's appearance completely disappeared. Although she didn't completely believe Nian Bing's words, Nian Bing still moved her. When she was very young, Xuejing's mother passed away. She had been relying on her father for survival. Xueji was a good father and took care of her. It wasn't easy for him to bring her up. She and Xueji had a very deep relationship. After listening to Nian Bing's words, the father-daughter relationship in her heart surged. Only then did she feel that it was inappropriate for her to secretly leave. Leave after sending a letter to the Ottoman Empire? Is this for real? Nian Bing was a little doubtful. However, since Xuejing had already said so, he really didn't have any reason to refuse. He could only helplessly nod and say, "All right then. However, there's one thing I have to say in advance. You can't cause me any trouble on the way. Otherwise, I won't agree to let you go with me." Xuejing giggled and said, "Don't worry, I'll listen to everything you say. That should be fine, right? I can even promise you that I'll try my best to control my temper." Although she said that, she was also planning her own wishful thinking. Ever since she left Ice City to chase after Nian Bing, she had already confirmed the position of Nian Bing in her heart. At this moment, she thought to herself, "Didn't you teach me that if I like someone, I must courageously pursue them? From here to the capital of the Ottoman Empire, It'll take at least 15 to 20 days. I don't believe that you won't develop feelings for me in such a long time. Xu was very confident in her figure and appearance. If she could get Nian Bing to go back with her, then all her problems would be solved. Right at this moment, the waiter came out with a plate. "Sir, the food you ordered is ready." As he said that, he placed the 3 plates on the table one by one. When Nian Bing saw the food, his attention was immediately diverted. How fast? Even if he was making these 3 dishes, he probably wouldn't be much faster than the chefs here. A faint fragrance assailed his nostrils. Among them, the most fragrant was naturally the golden incense ring. Xu said in surprise, "Isn't this the golden incense ring? Why are they selling it here?" Nian Bing smiled slightly and said, "Silence, let's try it and see how the chef here compares to Master Ming." As he said that, he picked up a pair of chopsticks and took a bite of the golden incense ring. The moment the golden incense ring entered his mouth, Nian Bing was immediately moved. He looked at Xu. Xu was also looking at him at this moment. "Nian Bing, do you know who the chef here is? How come his golden incense ring is the same as Uncle Ming's?" Uncle Ming said before, the secret of the golden incense ring is passed down in his family. Other than him and his master, only your master, senior ghost chef, knows. "What's going on?" Nian Bing shook his head and said, "I don't know either. Try these 2 dishes. Do you recognize these 2 types of noodles?" Xu was previously attracted by the golden incense ring. Only now did she notice the other 2 types of noodles. She shook her head blankly and said, "Nian Bing, what are these?" Nian Bing pointed at the neatly stacked plate. The exterior was yellow and looked like pastries. He said, "This is donkey roll. It's a very famous snack in the Huarong Empire. It's very difficult to make it well. I think you'll love it. Try it." Xu picked up a donkey roll and took a small bite. After chewing a few times, his face revealed a look of surprise. "Delicious. It's really delicious. What is this thing made of? It's fragrant and sweet. It's also a little sticky. The taste is amazing." Nian Bing also picked up a piece and ate it. As she ate, she said, "It's really not bad. It's the authentic donkey roll. The taste is very good. Actually, donkey roll should be called bean cake, because after it's made, it's placed in soybean flour and rolled around. It's like a real donkey rolling around in the countryside, kicking up dust. That's how it got its name. Its ingredients are yellow rice flour steamed with water. When the flour is kneaded, a little more water is added to soften it. After the soybeans are fried, they're rolled into flour. When making it, the steamed yellow rice flour is dipped in soybeans and rolled into slices. Then, the red bean paste filling is applied and rolled. It's rolled into 2 pieces and sprinkled with white sugar. When making it, the filling has to be evenly rolled. The layers are distinct and the exterior is yellow. The characteristics are fragrant, sweet, sticky, and have a rich flavor of soybeans. Silence. Look, the layers of this donkey roll are very distinct and there are a lot of layers. Each layer is thin and thick. This is the top grade of donkey roll. It's called 1,000-layered donkey roll. On the surface, it looks very simple. In fact, because the soybean flour is very soft, it's not easy to control it as you wish. After saying the last sentence, he stuffed the rest of the donkey roll into his mouth and nodded in satisfaction. Finally, he could eat delicious food without having to do it himself. After eating a donkey roll, Xu didn't continue to eat. Instead, she pointed to another plate and said, "What about this one? It looks yellow and seems to be quite thin. It's like a transparent, thin crystal. It smells a little like ginger." Nian Bing smiled and said, "This is ginger ribs. Compared to donkey roll, it's more famous. It's a famous snack in the southernmost Qilu Empire. Most children like to eat it. Back then, in order to learn this snack, my master had personally gone to Qilu Empire and used all kinds of methods to get the true inheritance. Like the golden fragrance ring, this ginger ribs also has its own production chant. It's called, It's All About Skill. The specific surface is slightly to coax children. It's crispy, sweet, and crisp. The ginger taste is just right. It's exquisite and ingenious. Among them, the most important is the word crispy. During the production process, the shredded ginger ribs. From the name, it can be known that there is fresh ginger in the raw materials. Thus, when eaten, it has a clear taste of fresh ginger. It needs to be peeled fresh ginger and chopped in a fine powder. Flour and a certain amount of alum powder are added together in a basin and mixed with cold water to form a dough. Another method is to mix the dough with water and roll it 5 or 6 times on a mill until the thin slices are uniform and smooth. Then, sprinkle fine starch on the thin slices and stack them to form a long strip. Then, use a knife to cut the slices into 1 inch wide and 2 inches long slices. Stack the 2 slices together and make 3 cuts in the middle. Then, spread them out into individual slices and flip them over. Then, fry them in warm water. The fried ribs are dipped in honey. The method of dipping in honey is to peel fresh ginger and cut it into fine shreds. Then, boil the ginger shreds with water and take them out. Then, add in white sugar. After boiling the pot, add in caramel sugar and osmanthus. Then, move the pot to a small fire and dip the fried ribs into the caramel sugar. After dipping in honey, the ribs are light yellow. It has the characteristics of crispy, sweet, and fragrant. When eaten, it has the taste of ginger. You don't need to eat the ribs to feel that they are delicious. Based on the appearance alone, this is the best I can do under normal circumstances. Xu Ejing was naturally familiar with Nian Bing's perception of the world. Naturally, she understood that he was referring to not using magic under normal circumstances. The 3 dishes in front of her could get such a high evaluation from him. It could be seen that the chef here was not ordinary. Clap, clap, clap. Suddenly, applause sounded. A clear voice said, "Good, I was wondering who could name these 3 dishes. It turns out that you are an expert. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you." Nian Bing and Xu Ejing looked in the direction of the voice. They saw a woman in a chef's uniform standing at the entrance of the back hall, looking at them. Seeing this girl, Nian Bing and Xu Ejing could not help but gasp. They had seen ugly people before, but they had never seen such an ugly one. These days, Nian Bing had seen many beautiful women. Suddenly seeing an exceptionally ugly woman, he was really not used to it. That girl's figure was not bad. She was tall and had exquisite curves. However, her face could only be described as terrifying. She had an aquiline nose, straight eyebrows, high cheekbones, small eyes, and the most terrifying thing was the big yellow buck teeth in her mouth. Looking at her appearance, no one would be in the mood to eat. Too horrible to look at. It was really too horrible to look at. However, it was not that she did not have any good points. Perhaps it was because her appearance was too bad, but her skin looked very white. That kind of beauty, if one did not look at her face, would be very attractive. Standing up, a look of pity flashed through Nian Bing's eyes. He walked in front of the girl and said, "Are you the head chef here?" The girl looked at Nian Bing with her small eyes. She nodded and said, "That's right. I am a head chef here, and also the only chef. Just now, I heard your evaluation of my 3 kinds of cooked wheaten food. I think you must be an expert." Nian Bing smiled and said, "I don't dare to say that I am an expert. I was attracted by this signboard. It seems that these 3 gold coins were really worth it. The 3 kinds of cooked wheaten food that you made, the control of the fire was just right. Especially the donkey roll. Although I am confident that I can do this kind of donkey roll, but the degree of uniformity is not as good as yours." Nian Bing's best cooking skills were knife skills and all kinds of big meals. Although he had also worked hard on the wheaten food, he knew that if he did not combine his ice and fire magic in the wheaten food, it would be very difficult for him to compare with this girl in front of him. From the looks of it, this girl was not older than him. At such a young age, her cooking skills had already reached the point of perfection. Nian Bing could not help but secretly admire her. Presumably, she was the same as him and had also received guidance from a famous master. The girl smiled slightly. Frankly speaking, her smile was uglier than a normal person's crying face. She said, "Every chef has something that they are good at. Although the words first-grade wheaten food are a bit exaggerated, I ask myself, the things that I made are still worth the price of 1 gold coin." Nian Bing's heart stirred. He said, "I wonder if this girl knows a senior called Chef Meow. The other 2 kinds of cooked wheaten food are circulated in the outside world. However, not many people know the secret of the golden fragrance ring. The girl's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. You can tell the origin of my cooking skills at a glance. Who are you? Nian Shui smiled slightly and said, I am just an ordinary chef. I have a friend who is Chef Miao's disciple. Therefore, I know a little about the cooking skills of the Miao Chef clan. That is why I can recognize your cooking skills. The girl's body trembled. Could it be that you know Senior Ming Yuan? But he's in Ice Snow City. Xu Ejing's excited voice came from behind Nian Bing. You are Uncle Ming Yuan's junior sister? The girl looked at Xu Ejing's beautiful face and could not help but lower her head in shame. She said, Yes, I am Master's last disciple. Master said that senior brother has always been in Ice Snow City. Xu Ejing's beautiful eyes moved. She seemed to have thought of something. She stepped forward and affectionately held the girl's soft little hand. She said, Come, let's sit over there and talk. You call Uncle Ming Yuan your senior brother. It seems that I am one generation younger than you. He. Seeing the two girls walk to the side and sit down, as if they had forgotten about him, Nian Bing could not help but reveal a helpless and bitter smile. However, he was very curious about this girl who called herself junior sister Ming Yuan. From her attainments in cooked wheaten food, she was definitely not below Ming Yuan, who was immersed in this path. Although Master said that his talent was very high, he had learned almost all kinds of cooking skills in the past 8 years. Therefore, there were very few specializations. However, with the help of magic, he could become a top chef. However, Nian Bing understood that if he wanted to have a breakthrough in his cooking skills, he could not rely on magic. He could not rely on magic all the time. He had to spend a long time comprehending and improving himself in all aspects. Walking to the table and sitting down, he just happened to hear Xu Ejing ask the girl, I am Xu Ejing. Uncle Ming Yuan is the head chef of our Clear Wind restaurant. What is your name? The girl's eyes revealed an excited look. I am Ming Hui. Are you from the Clear Wind restaurant? My master once said that I should go to the Clear Wind restaurant to visit senior brother when I have time. How is he now? Is he all right? Xu Ejing nodded and said, Uncle Ming is very good. He doesn't cook himself anymore. However, why have I never seen him make the rolling donkey and ginger sauce pork fork? Could it be that he doesn't know how to make them? Ming Hui nodded and said, Yes, senior brother probably doesn't know how to make them. These two kinds of cooked wheaten food were learned by Master when he brought me out to travel. He used his own cooking skills to exchange for them. Master has not seen senior brother for many years. When he was traveling, he could gain a lot of knowledge. For example, the local children had a nursery rhyme to praise the ginger ribs fork. Buy a pack, raffle a pack. Kira ribs fork, ginger ribs fork, hemp flour, broken ribs fork, 10 kinds of brocade flour, a big bag like a crystal, sweet and crisp in the mouth. Together with the Qilu Empire's fried dough twist, they are known as the two most famous snacks of Qilu. Hearing this, Nian Bing could not help but ask, Then where is Senior Master Chef now? I want to ask him for more advice. Ming Hui smiled slightly. The buck teeth in his mouth looked even more prominent. Master is not here. After he left me here to work, he left by himself. He said that he wanted me to practice here for a few more years. I don't know where he went. Nian Bing said sincerely, Miss Ming Hui, your cooking skills are already very exquisite. Ming Hui was a little shy, a blush appearing on his fair face. He shook his head and said, Actually, it's not like that. Master said that although my talent is good, my memory is bad. That's why he didn't want me to learn all kinds of cooking skills at the same time, like senior brother. He said that if I did that, although I could become a good chef, it would be very difficult for me to become a top chef in the continent. Instead, it would be better to learn only one kind of cooking skill. That way, the chances of me becoming a top chef would be much higher. That's why I chose to learn wheaten food without the smell of blood. My goal is to become a top-notch master of wheaten food. Learn only wheaten food? Nian Bing could not help but have some doubts in his heart. However, he agreed with Master Chef's way of doing things. Back then, Chaji had told him that if he did not possess both ice and fire magic, he would also want him to learn from one kind of cooking skill. That way, he would be able to master one kind of cooking skill first and then continue to develop in other directions. After that, because magic could be used to make food undergo a myriad of changes, Cha Ji decided to let him develop in all kinds of aspects at the same time. Through long periods of practice and his own comprehension, he would gradually improve his cooking skills. Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, "You're already a top-notch master of cooked wheaten food. I think that even senior chef Miao wouldn't be able to cook wheaten food at your current level when he was at your age. I have experienced Master Ming's cooking skills, but other than the golden fragrance ring, I'm afraid that his other skills are not as good as yours." When Ming Hui heard Nian Bing's praise, the blush on his face deepened. This big brother is overpraising me. Actually, I have to thank Master. Without his careful nurturing, I would not be where I am today. Master has taught me for 12 years. From the age of 5, I have been learning how to knead dough from Master. When I was 14, I followed Master to travel the continent. After 3 years of tempering, Master summed up the essence of all kinds of wheaten food and integrated it into my own cooking skills. That is how I have achieved what I have today. However, compared to a truly good chef, I am nothing. After all, I am only a wheaten food master. Nian Bing shook her head and said, "No, Miss Ming Hui, you are wrong. Although you are only a wheaten food master, if you can do your best in this aspect and become the continent's #1 wheaten food master, then your achievements will definitely not be lower than any other chef. You must have confidence in yourself. As a good chef, modesty is a must, but you must not feel inferior. If you want others to acknowledge you, you must first acknowledge yourself. Do you understand?" Ming Hui looked deeply at Nian Bing. After a long while, she suddenly smiled. "You feel very close to him, just like my master. If Master sees you, he will probably be very happy. You will definitely be able to talk." After saying this, she turned to Xu Edging and asked, "Big Sister Shui, a few days ago, I heard from a traveling merchant that a very powerful chef has appeared in Ice Snow City. Moreover, he is also a magician. He is able to fuse magic with his cooking, causing the dishes to have many unique tastes. Is this true?" Xu Edging glanced at Nian Bing and smiled. "Of course it is true. Moreover, this chef has previously worked in our Clear Wind restaurant." She and Nian Bing did not doubt Ming Hui in the slightest. After all, other things could be fake, but his culinary skills were definitely not fake, especially such a profound skill in wheaten food. Ming Hui said in surprise, "Is that so? Then is his culinary skills really as miraculous as those traveling merchants said? I really want to see the effects of combining magic and culinary skills. It's a pity that I don't know magic. Otherwise, I would definitely give it a try." Xu Edging's smile became even more brilliant. "Isn't it easy to know if his culinary skills are as miraculous as the legends say? Why don't you personally experience it?" Ming Hui was stunned and said, "Experience it? But he's in Ice Snow City. Do I have to go to Ice Snow City to experience it? I really can't do without people here." Xu Edging said with a smile, "Isn't it easy to experience it? You don't even need to step out of the door, because he is right here." Ming Hui's brain was clearly a little slow. He still did not understand what she meant. He looked at Xu Edging in confusion. Xu Edging turned her gaze to Nian Bing and said in a low voice, "The ice and fire chef you speak of is so far away, but right in front of you." Ming Hui stared at Nian Bing with wide eyes. You are the legendary ice and fire chef." Nian Bing said with a bitter smile, "I am not an antique. Don't use the word legend to describe me. However, I am indeed the chef you spoke of who uses magic to cook. You can call me Nian Bing." The excitement in Ming Hui's eyes could not be concealed. Just like when Nian Bing met Ming Yuan for the first time, only chefs of their level would have such a special feeling when meeting a chef of the same level. It was as if they had met a family member. "That's great. Then I must experience it. Brother Nian Bing, can you come to the kitchen with me?" Nian Bing said with a smile. "I also want to learn the skills of cooked wheaten food from you. Frankly speaking, I am definitely not as good as you when it comes to cooked wheaten food." Ming Hui took the initiative to take Nian Bing's hand. He had completely forgotten the difference between men and women and pulled him to the kitchen. Because of Ming Hui's appearance, Xu Edging was not jealous at all. She smiled and followed the two into the kitchen. As the successor of the Cool Breeze restaurant, how could she miss this kind of competition between top chefs? The kitchen was huge, but it was empty. Just like what Ming Hui had said, She was the only chef here. There wasn't even anyone to help her. The most eye-catching part of the kitchen was the huge chopping board. The left side of the chopping board was covered with a clean cotton cloth. Without looking, Nian Bing knew that there must be all kinds of flower blankets under it. Minghui, what's your best dish? Can I try it? I'm not full from the pastries just now. Nian Bing asked with a smile. Minghui said, I am best at beef noodles. Brother Nian Bing, please teach me. As she said, she opened the lid of the stove below and boiled a pot of water. Beef noodles sounded very ordinary, but Nian Bing knew that the beef noodles made by Minghui were absolutely not simple. While she was thinking, Minghui took out a strip of noodles from under the chopping board. The noodles were cylindrical, about half a foot long, and as thick as a woman's forearm. She looked at Nian Bing and said, Brother, what kind of noodles do you want to eat? Thick, thin, wide, flat. Please choose one. Nian Bing smiled and said, Among the noodles, the thin one requires the chef's skills the most. I will eat the thin one. It is easier to digest. The noodles are divided into groups according to the thickness. They are 2 pillars, 2 thin, capillary, and 1 pot of shredded noodles. I think the thin noodles you make will be finer than 1 pot of shredded noodles. Please. Okay. After a simple answer, Minghui's eyes suddenly changed. Nian Bing couldn't be more familiar with this kind of eyes. It was the perfect combination of concentration and mental concentration. She stared at the noodles on the chopping board and pushed them back and forth slightly with her hands, making the noodles slowly lengthen. Nian Bing knew that she was feeling the toughness of the noodles. Different toughness led to different methods of making noodles. Even the noodles made by oneself should be fully felt before making, otherwise, it was easy to make mistakes. Xue Jing whispered, Nian Bing, could it be that there's some special seasoning in her beef noodles? Is there a secret recipe? Nian Bing shook her head and said, if she relies on special seasoning or secret recipe, she can't be called a top noodle chef in Shang Dynasty. I think she should be making ordinary beef noodles. Let's continue to watch. It is definitely different from the beef noodles you usually eat. From her technique, we can see that she is using the method of making noodles. This method can make the noodles to the thinnest level. The highest level is that when the noodles are made, there is no break. It is completely a whole noodle. Therefore, the top noodle is also called one noodle or the best quality longevity noodles. Just as Nian Bing was explaining to Xue Jing, Minghui moved. She pinched one end of the noodle with both hands and slowly started to talk. Her serious expression was still so focused, and her eyes moved with the noodle. At this moment, it was as if the noodle had become one with her body. She started. Her movements were very slow. She pulled the noodle apart on both sides, and the noodle always maintained the shape of a cylinder. Suddenly, she shook her hands forcefully, and the noodle in her hands instantly lengthened. It hit the chopping board with a bang. The instant the noodle bounced up, she transferred the noodle in her left hand to her right hand at lightning speed. At the same time, her left hand passed through the curved noodle and instantly lengthened. This was the process of one noodle becoming two. Minghui's movements began to become faster, so fast that it was too much for the eyes to take in. The white noodle in her hands seemed to be alive, constantly weaving and folding. The originally cylindrical noodle block quickly became thin strands. Nian Bing kept counting. In just a short while, the unbeaten noodle block had become 4,096 strands of noodles. Nian Bing had also learned how to make noodles. He asked himself, in the case of such a small noodle block, he could at most make the noodles to this extent without breaking. However, Minghui didn't stop the movements of her hands. She just slowed down from her original speed. Her hands trembled slightly at the same time, as if she couldn't hold the noodles in her hands. However, her hands trembled very rhythmically. The 4,096 strands of noodles were like strands of hair in the trembling of her hands. The noodles touched each other. Because the strands of noodles were very thin, Minghui's trembling looked very hair-raising, as if these strands of noodles could break at any time. Chapter 42. Seeing this, Nian Bing couldn't help but exclaim in her heart. This must be the plain tremor method that her master had mentioned. Cha Ji had once mentioned to Nian Bing that in making noodles, there was a most profound method called the plain trimmer method. Even Cha Ji himself didn't know how to make noodles. Through the plain trimmer method, one could continuously increase the toughness and ductility of the noodles during the collision with an even force. The plain trimmer method couldn't be more suitable for thin noodles. However, Nian Bing was a little worried. If the noodles were folded by another layer, would they be cooked because they were too thin when they were put into the water? Finally, the vibration of the noodles was maintained until the moment the water in the iron pot boiled. Ming Hui suddenly left the chopping board, pulled out her left hand like lightning, and raised her right hand high, making the 4,096 noodles completely suspended in the air. Her left arm blocked the middle of the noodles, and her right hand caught the noodles with the noodles. In the process of stretching and pulling, 8,192 noodles appeared, and not a single one was broken. It looked like a marvelous skill that made people gasp in amazement. With a light flick, the noodles returned to their original length of 4,096 noodles. Ming Hui swung her left hand, and with her right hand, she easily put the noodles into the boiling water. The iron pot was very large, with a diameter of more than 1 meter. Ming Hui put the noodles on the edge of the iron pot, and then immediately picked up a pair of chopsticks. The front end of the chopsticks separated to two sides. She didn't pick up the noodles, but quickly spun them in the middle of the iron pot at the boiling water. At this moment, her hands suddenly turned milky white. In the steaming steam, they were translucent like sparkling pearls. When the steam condensed into water droplets appeared on her hands, it reminded Nian Bing of a sentence that Cha Ji had said before. The moon in the sea has tears. She stirred faster and faster. The whole pot of water was spinning rapidly under the movement of the pair of chopsticks, and the noodles also moved rhythmically in the spinning. The originally boiling water was no longer bubbling because of the rapid stirring. Nian Bing exclaimed, "I understand now. This is the water-breaking face protecting technique. It's amazing." The face-breaking method referred to stirring the boiling water into a whirlpool shape, so that although the temperature of the whole pot of water reached the boiling point, it didn't boil. In this way, when cooking, the food could be evenly heated, and the shape of the food would not be affected by the bubbles when the water boiled. The requirement of rotating was not difficult. Any chef, after a long period of practice, could use chopsticks to stir a pot of water into a whirlpool. The difficulty lay in the fact that she was stirring boiling water. Although the water did not come into contact with the water, the temperature above the boiling water would definitely not be too high. This required the chef to not be affected by the boiling water in any way, and his hands had to be steady. Therefore, this method of breaking the water to protect the surface became very difficult. The chopsticks suddenly left the water, and the boiling water in the iron pot was still spinning rapidly due to inertia. Ming Hui took a large bowl and opened a metal bucket beside it. She scooped out a light yellow broth from inside. The broth looked very transparent, and there was not a trace of impurities in it. When it was placed in the bowl, it looked like a huge yellow crystal. This was the prepared beef broth. The chopsticks reached into the pot like lightning, and Ming Hui gently lifted all the noodles out of the boiling water and put them into the bowl. After the steaming noodles were immersed in the beef broth, the bowl suddenly became half full. The chopsticks in Ming Hui's hand cleverly moved the noodles in the beef broth, first clockwise, then counterclockwise, and then counterclockwise. Only then did it stop, and the slightly yellow noodles were neatly placed at the bottom of the bowl. She took a large metal ladle, scooped a spoonful of hot broth from the pot, and poured it on the topmost part. Then she reached into the metal bucket and took out a few thin strips of meat about an inch wide and as thin as paper, and a few pieces of white radish cooked in the beef broth, and put them on the noodles. Finally, she pinched a handful of coriander and sprinkled it in the broth. Then she put down the bowl and dripped a few drops of bright red chili oil. Beef broth noodle soup, please taste it. Ming Hui's forehead was slightly sweaty, and her hands returned to their original color. She looked at Nian Bing, and her eyes were full of confidence. Nian Bing did not say much. He nodded to her, took the chopsticks in Ming Hui's hand, and began to eat. "I want to eat too. Leave some for me. Hey, don't eat so fast." Xu was dissatisfied and wanted to snatch Nianbing's south strips. In fact, Nianbing did not eat fast at all. He just ate a few noodles, a piece of beef strip, and a mouthful of broth. He handed the chopsticks to Xu, sighed, and looked at Ming Hui with admiration in his eyes. I'm convinced. Since I left my master, this is the first time I sincerely admire a chef. The beef noodles you made are absolutely worthy of the words first-grade noodle dish. Ming Hui's ugly face was slightly red, and she said, Brother Nianbing, you flatter me. Wow, it's delicious. I usually don't like to eat noodles the most, but why are these noodles so delicious? Ming Hui, why are your noodles so thin, but they don't feel soft at all? Every noodle is like a somersault, and it tastes so good. Also, the noodles don't stick to each other at all. And the meat, is this the beef that you cut? The taste is so good, and the broth is also good. It should be beef bone broth. That's not right. Beef bone broth doesn't seem to be so fresh. And the fragrance is a little strange. It's clearly the fragrance of beef broth, but why do I have a special feeling? Xu originally refined eating manners were completely gone. The beef noodles were not hot, and other than Nianbing eating a little, the rest would enter her stomach in a while. Ming Hui covered her mouth and chuckled, and said, Sister Xu, eat slowly. If you still want to eat, I'll make more for you. Don't rush. Nianbing smiled and said, It's already very good that she can make so much. She's worthy of being the successor of Cool Breeze Temple. Ming Hui, let me talk about the characteristics of your beef noodles in clear broth. You can see if I'm right. After muttering to himself for a while, he then continued, The beef noodles you made have the essence of traditional beef noodles. The first clear, second white, third red, fourth green, and fifth yellow characteristics are completely reflected. The first clear is the broth clear, the second white is the radish white, the third red is the chili oil red, the fourth green is the coriander green, and the fifth yellow is the noodles yellow. The refreshing and rich colors stimulate your appetite. Not only that, but you also added in your own innovation. Just the fineness of the noodles is something I can't do. That tremor noodle technique is indeed mysterious, to be able to pull the noodles so thin and still maintain a certain degree of toughness. It's much finer than a nest of silk, but it still has strength and won't affect the taste. What I admire the most is your method of breaking water to protect the noodles. Even my master can't do that. I think your right hand must have practiced some special skill that can make it not afraid of the heat. However, under the steam, it's not enough to not be afraid of the heat. Without a firm willpower, it's absolutely impossible to keep your hand stable. It's really admirable. The noodles are good noodles, and, at the same time, the soup is also good soup. Just as Jing said, your beef soup is made from beef bones, the best New Year's meat, and refined butter. However, it's not that simple. In this beef soup, you added at least 3 kinds of herbs. However, these herbs not only won't affect the taste of the beef soup, but will also completely set off the freshness of the beef soup. At the same time, the taste of the herbs will also be integrated into the beef soup. After feeling the freshness of the beef soup, you will immediately feel the fragrance of the herbs. The two tastes perfectly mix together to become the best quality beef soup. It's really amazing. As for the beef, it's not simply cut, but its original shape. The most delicious meat on the beef is not the beef eye on the chest, nor any thick inner muscle, but the beef ribs on the ribs. It's really the best choice. Combining these, I dare say, on the whole continent, you can't find a beef noodle soup that can surpass your. I'm convinced, completely convinced. Ming Hui's eyes flashed with surprise. Big brother, you're absolutely right. Except for the 3 kinds of herbs that you didn't mention, the rest are exactly the same. You deserve to be called the Ice and Fire Chef. Xu stroked her stomach contentedly and came to the two people's side. She looked at Nianbing with some doubts. The beef noodle soup is really delicious, but is it really as complicated as you said? Sister Ming Hui, you don't have to be afraid of being shocked. Feel free to be shocked. I support you. I think he must have said something wrong. Ming Hui shook his head and said, No, there's nothing wrong at all. Even if it's me, at most, I just added the names of the 3 kinds of herbs. Big Brother Nian Bing's cooking skills are definitely better than mine. Big Brother, it's your turn now. I want to see what your ice and fire cooking skills are like. Can I? Nian Bing smiled and said, after eating such delicious beef noodle soup, how can I hide it? Speaking of this, he couldn't help but look at Xu Edging. The one who really ate a lot was her. Before he had time to eat, there was only an empty bowl left. My poor stomach. Although that was what he thought, Nian Bing did not stop what he was doing. He walked in front of the chopping board, thought for a moment, and quickly decided what he was going to do. He first washed his hands, then removed the cloth and took out a piece of noodles that was exactly the same as the one Ming Hui had just given him. He smiled and said, I've eaten your noodles, so I'll return the favor. I'll make you a bowl of noodles too. Yours is beef noodles in clear broth, and mine is the best cold noodles. There's no material here that I need, so I can only use some tricks. As he spoke, he began the process of kneading the noodles. He knew that if he didn't use some unique skills, he would definitely be looked down upon by Ming Hui. He didn't want others to say that he relied on magic to cook delicious food. The dough quickly turned into a ball in Nian Bing's hands. His hands moved slowly, and each stroke was full of strength. Gradually, his movements became faster. Every time he pressed, the dough would be kneaded into a non-existent state. As his movements became faster and faster, Nian Bing's hands seemed to be boneless as he kneaded the dough with his palms. The shadows of his palms completely enveloped the dough, and the existence of the dough could no longer be seen. His palms were like a ball, protecting the dough completely. Ming Hui opened his eyes wide and gasped. This is the kneading method of separating tendons and dislocating bones. It actually exists. Xu Edging said in surprise, separating tendons and dislocating bones? Could it be that the joint between his hand and the bowl was separated? Ming Hui shook his head and said, that's not it. This kneading method is extremely difficult to master. The main reason is the flexibility of a wrist. Only when the wrist can be twisted in any direction can it succeed. It's just like separating tendons and bones. This kneading method has another name. It's called the separating tendons and dislocating bones wishful hands. It's one of the 7 great forbidden techniques of a cooked wheaten pastry chef, along with my water-breaking face protecting technique. Through the separating tendons and dislocating bones wishful hands, the strength of the noodles can be increased to the extreme while maintaining the moisture of the dough. Generally speaking, the dough made with this method must be complemented by a special cooking method. Otherwise, even if it's cooked, you won't be able to bite it. In our cooking world, there's a saying that as long as you can master one of the 7 great forbidden techniques of a cooked wheaten pastry chef, you can become a top-notch cooked wheaten pastry chef. I only know the water-breaking face protecting mysterious jade hand, which is ranked 4th among the 7 great forbidden techniques. I didn't expect that Big Brother Nian Bing would actually know the separating tendons and dislocating bones wishful hands, which is ranked 3rd. It seems that I'm inferior to him in the field of cooked wheaten pastry. Nian Bing's movements stopped without any warning. He turned his head and smiled at Ming Hui, saying, no, you're wrong. The 7 great forbidden techniques can't prove anything. As an item-level cooked wheaten pastry chef, you still need to combine all kinds of abilities. In the field of cooked wheaten pastry, I definitely can't compare to you. With a flash of green light, the proud heaven blade appeared in Nian Bing's hand. The blade emitted a light groan and spiritual energy overflowed. Good blade. Is this your kitchen knife? Ming Hui asked in astonishment. Nian Bing smiled faintly and said, it's one of the knives. In terms of pure knife skills, it's the most suitable. The blade's name is Proud Heaven. It can also be called the gentle groan of the wind of freedom. I can't compare to you in terms of craftsmanship, so let's use the word skillful. With a strange twist of his right wrist, he held the Proud Heaven blade upside down. His left hand held the round dough that was a full circle smaller than before. Ming Hui knew that what Nian Bing was going to do next was definitely not simple. She could see from Nian Bing's eyes that he was even more focused than her. But what was strange was that the object of his focus wasn't the dough, but the blade. The gentle groan of the wind of freedom, Proud Heaven blade. The water in the iron pot was still boiling. Nian Bing's blade finally moved. It looked very slow, as if it was a green mist. However, the shadow of the blade could no longer be seen clearly. One could only vaguely sense that the tip of the blade was stabbing downwards into the dough. His wrist was trembling as he asked. A piece of white dough was picked up into the pot. This was the prelude. Following that, pieces of white dough, as if they were threaded, a string of white light appeared 3 inches apart. With a clear sound of water, they poured into the pot. Nian Bing's movements were very fast. He always held the handle of the blade in reverse. His expression was very relaxed. His eyes were always on the shadow of the blade that could not be seen clearly. Minghui seemed to have thought of something. She quickly walked to the side of the iron pot. When she saw the boiling water in the pot, her whole body was completely stunned. Her mouth slowly spat out 4 words, Jin, Su Guan. Xuejing doubtfully came to the side of the iron pot. What is Jin, Su? She also saw that the boiling noodles in the pot were actually words and not the noodles she had imagined. The words were very clear, and they were 2 words joined together. They were about 1 inch long and half an inch wide. They were clearly the 2 words Minghui. The strokes were strong and forceful, and each set of words was exactly the same. There was no difference at all. How did this happen? Minghui looked at the iron wok in a daze. One of the 5 famous knife skills in the cooking world, brocade void. I'm actually lucky enough to see it. Master, do you know I actually saw the brocade void? Xuejing shook Minghui and asked with concern, Are you okay? Minghui shook his head and said, Thank you. I'm fine. I was just too excited. It had to be known that the difficulty of the 5 great knife techniques of the culinary world was even higher than the 7 great forbidden techniques of the cooked wheaten food master. The 5 famous knife skills have long been lost. The 7 great forbidden hand techniques could be mastered through talent and hard work. However, the 5 great swords required extraordinary comprehension and hard work throughout the years. I had heard my master introduce the 5 great swords to me before. At that time, I had thought that it was unbelievable. I had thought that it was a miraculous technique that could not possibly exist. Only today did I realize that I was wrong. I had been so narrow-minded. Brocade void appeared in front of me. This was the swordsmanship A11, which was ranked 4th among the 5 great swords. Her body was trembling slightly. If she knew that Nian Bing also knew the Rain Dragon's dance, which was ranked 1st among the 5 famed saber techniques, what would she think? Even though Nian Bing hadn't completely mastered the dance of the dancing dragon, it was still the #1 knife technique in the culinary world. Under A.O. Tian's mysterious poking, the noodles in Nian Bing's hand gradually shrank. In just a dozen breaths, he had already completed all the movements. He picked up the chopsticks and stirred in the pot. At the same time, his left hand flashed with a red light and pressed on the edge of the pot. The moment his left hand touched the iron pot, the chopsticks quickly left. At the same time, he switched the chopsticks for the pot lid and pressed it on the pot with lightning speed. Minghui and Xuejing could clearly feel the entire pot shaking violently. The pot had completely turned red, and a scorching aura filled the entire kitchen. In just 3 breaths, Nian Bing's left hand left the pot. His right hand picked up the pot lid and put it aside. Immediately, steam rose up like a mushroom cloud. His left hand grabbed a hedge and scooped up the noodles from the pot. He immediately dipped them in the cold water. At the same time, his right hand pressed on the bucket of cold water. His movements were as smooth as flowing water. There was no hesitation. If Minghui had not seen Nian Bing for the first time, he would have suspected that he had entered his kitchen before. He seemed to be very familiar with the location of every tool. There was not a trace of error. Nian Bing's left hand that was holding the hedge loosened. Xuejing and Minghui were surprised to find that the hedge actually stood still in the water. Nian Bing seemed to have finished his work. He turned around and smiled at the 2 girls. I used the tendon and bone dislocation technique to increase the toughness of the noodles by 3 times. I used high temperature to cook it quickly. Now, I will completely freeze it, using the 2 extreme methods of ice and fire to destroy the internal structure of the noodles. In this way, the tendon and bone dislocation technique produced by the noodles will not be difficult to chew. At the same time, the aroma of the noodles will be fully displayed. The texture is extremely strong, and it will not be difficult to chew. Displaying the original taste of the ingredients has always been my pursuit. Miss Minghui, I want to borrow your beef soup. After that, he took out a clean, empty bowl and scooped out half a bowl of beef soup from the bucket. He added a little vinegar, a little sugar, and some chili oil and quickly mixed them well. Then, he grabbed the hedgerow. Under the effect of the fire element, the hedgerow left the bucket with the frozen noodles. The ice gradually melted, and when the noodles were exposed, he put the ice into the bowl. Under the effect of the ice cubes, the temperature of the beef soup at room temperature quickly dropped. The ice completely melted, and the noodles appeared in the bowl. Nian Bing gently stirred twice to let the soup and noodles merge completely. He pressed his left hand on the surface of the soup bowl, and a thin layer of ice appeared. It was as if the entire bowl was frozen. Well, it's done. Please taste my bowl of ice-fire noodles. Nian Bing confidently smiled at the two girls. Ming Hui and Xu Weijing looked at each other sluggishly. The two picked up clean chopsticks and walked to the front of the bowl. The chopsticks easily broke the thin ice, and they each put a piece of noodles into their mouths. Ming Hui raised her head and looked at Nian Bing, her eyes full of surprise. The cold noodles, with the cold noodles aroma, plus the three flavors of sour, sweet, and spicy, as well as the beef soup's own freshness, it's really delicious. As expected of the ice-fire cooking demon, I'm far inferior. Nian Bing modestly said, Miss Ming Hui, please don't say that. I borrowed the noodles you needed and the beef soup you prepare to have this effect. When it comes to noodles, I'm far inferior to Mississippi. It's just a trick. Ming Hui's eyes flashed. Are the tendon and bone dislocation technique and the brocade void technique also a trick? You two talk, I'll eat first. Xu Weijing didn't care about the technique or cooking skills. She only knew that the bowl of noodles in front of her was to her taste. Although she was already full from the beef noodles soup, she still couldn't resist the temptation of delicious food. Nian Bing smiled. There's no end to cooking. We still have a lot to learn, don't we? Ming Hui took a deep breath and nodded. Yes, there's no end to cooking. It seems that I shouldn't be a frog at the bottom of a well. There's still a lot to learn. Big brother Nian Bing, thank you for your guidance. Nian Bing sincerely said, Miss Ming Hui, you're welcome. I've also learned a lot from you. After leaving the noodle dish, Ming Hui had already reached an agreement with Xu Weijing. Xu Weijing wrote her a recommendation letter. Soon, she would go to Ice Snow City to train at the Breeze Temple. Silence. Have you found a place to stay? Nian Bing asked softly as they walked on the street. Xu Weijing took the initiative to hold Nian Bing's arm and shook her head. Not yet. I rushed to the city as soon as I arrived at Ice Orchid City. There were fewer people on the streets at night, so I wanted to walk more. I could leave the city early tomorrow morning and continue to look for you in the direction of the Ottoman Empire's capital. I know you don't have a horse. This time, you didn't even ride one. I'm so tired. How are you going to make it up to me? Right now, she was extremely excited. Not only had she found Nian Bing, she had also helped the Clear Wind sect recruit an extremely capable master of cooked wheaten food. This time, even if she returned to the Clear Wind sect, her father wouldn't blame her, right? Nian Bing struggled a little unnaturally, but Xu Weijing insisted on holding his arm. As a magician, he indeed couldn't compete with Xu Weijing in terms of strength. Helpless, he could only let her do as she wished. Xu Weijing's body emitted a faint virgin fragrance from time to time, causing Nian Bing's heart to throb. He was still a virgin. A virgin would always be easily attracted to a beautiful woman, even if he had a mature mind. In terms of figure, among all the girls he knew, perhaps only Feng Nu could compare to her. Make it up to you? Didn't I just treat you to a meal? This isn't enough compensation. Nian Bing didn't dare to look at Xu Weijing and quicken his steps. Xu Weijing smiled. Of course not. You want to dismiss me with a meal? Do you think I'm a beggar? Nian Bing smiled bitterly. Then what do you want me to do? Xu Weijing said. First of all, you'll be responsible for all the expenses along the way. You're not allowed to object. Secondly, when there's no restaurant, you have to personally cook for me. I don't eat dry food. I'm very sad to eat dry food all the way. Nian Bing made a surprised expression. No way. You're the dignified, cool breeze sex eldest miss. But you want to eat a poor person like me. You're so heartless. Shuejing giggled. I'm a girl. Don't tell me you want me to pay. I've already heard from Ling, that the magic scrolls you make are very valuable. It shouldn't be a problem to support me. I don't care. In any case, you have to agree. It seems that I can only admit that I'm unlucky. I hope there's still a room in the Lanshin Hotel. He could only hope to reach the capital of the Ottoman Empire as soon as possible. At that time, he could get rid of this crazy woman. Sigh, why is it that the more I don't want to have sex with women, the more beautiful women appear around me? Master told me to find a girl I love. But what is love between a man and a woman? No matter how smart Yin Bing was, he was still like a pure child in this aspect. Shuejing chasing after him made him feel something, but he couldn't explain it clearly. It's too late, even if there's a room. It's already so late. Who's going to open a room for me? Yin Bing, you should be staying in a standard room. Anyway, it's 2 beds. I'll just share with you. After saying this, Shuejing couldn't help but shyly lower her head. Yin Bing was shocked. What? No, you're a girl. How can you live with me? Shuejing snorted and said, It's all your fault. Just now we wasted so much time. Don't tell me you want me to sleep on the streets. I'm a girl, and I don't care. What do you care about? Don't tell me you have some bad intentions. Yin Bing looked at Shuejing in shock. You really want to live with me in the same room? That's not good for your reputation. You'll have to get married in the future. If your husband finds out, I'm afraid. Shuejing felt an inexplicable irritation in her heart. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Do you think I'll eat you up? It's none of your business whether I get married or not. At least tonight, I'll have a place to sleep peacefully. Humph. Miss, are you sure? Yin Bing asked tentatively. Shuejing snorted and said, Of course I'm sure. Are you afraid that I'll rape you? Speaking of this, even she couldn't help but laugh. She cursed in her heart, Shuejing, oh Shuejing, what's wrong with you now? How can you even say such words? Yin Bing pondered for a moment. He really didn't have a better idea at the moment. Just as Shuejing had said, there were 2 beds in his room. Although it wasn't appropriate for a man and a woman to share a room, it shouldn't be a problem as long as he was open-minded. Thinking of this, he could only nod his head. Shuejing let go of Yin Bing's arm and asked, When do you plan to leave Ice Orchid City? Yin Bing thought for a moment and said, Tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. I heard that there's a famous snack in Ice Orchid City called the Staring Food. It sounds very strange. Even Master didn't tell me before. I must try it. Also, I sold some magic scrolls in exchange for white magic scrolls. I need at least a day to make some magic scrolls for self-defense. Okay, I'm not in a hurry. Shuejing was, of course, not in a hurry. She couldn't wait for Yin Bing to walk slower. That way, she would have more time. When the 2 returned to Lanshin Hotel, it was already late at night. The security guard on duty let them enter the hotel after Yin Bing showed the room key. However, the security guard didn't leave. When Yin Bing was about to bring Shuejing upstairs, they were stopped by the security guard. I'm sorry, sir. We are a proper hotel. We don't allow guests to have any special activities in the hotel. The security guard said rudely. Yin Bing was stunned and asked, What do you mean? The security guard looked at Yin Bing and then looked at Shuejing, who was dressed in red. He said indifferently, You should know what I mean. It seems that one of the 2 of you isn't our guest. Yin Bing was quick-witted and immediately understood the security guard's meaning. She couldn't help feeling angry and amused. This is my friend. She just came to Ice Orchid City at night. It's too late now, and we can't book a room. So I can only bring her back to my place to suffer for the night and book a room for her alone tomorrow. Otherwise, you can book a room for me now. The security guard snorted and said, No, I don't have the right to book a room. Only one of you can go up. He thought to himself, this gigolo actually managed to seduce such a beautiful woman just by relying on his good looks. Humph, I won't let you get away with it. Although Shuejing wasn't as smart as Yin Bing, how could she not understand the security guard's words? She was furious and said, T. Who do you think we are? Get lost, or don't blame me for taking action. As she said this, she pressed her hand on the hilt of her sword. Immediately, a red fighting spirit wrapped around her delicate body. Nian Bing wasn't angry at this time. Instead, he was secretly grateful to the security guard in front of him. Previously, because of Xu Ejing's face, he couldn't refuse directly, but he still felt that it was inappropriate to be in the same room with her. Now that the security guard was obstructing him, he could go with the flow. He hurriedly stopped Xu Ejing and said, "Silence. Don't make trouble. Did you forget what you promised me? I'm right. This is for the safety of the guests. Here's the key. Go up and sleep." Chapter 43. Xu Ejing's heart was racing because she was going to stay in the same room as Nian Bing, and she was at a loss for what to do. After all, she was a young lady. Although she liked Nian Bing, she knew that it was inappropriate for her to stay in the same room as him. However, she felt that this was an opportunity and didn't want to let it go. Hence, she was hesitating. At this moment, Nian Bing heaved a sigh of relief. She also heaved a sigh of relief, but she was somewhat disappointed. "Nian Bing, what about you? What are you going to do if I stay in your room?" Nian Bing smiled and said, "You don't have to worry about me. Isn't there a sofa in the lobby? I'll just make do with it for the night." Xu Ejing glared fiercely at the security guard and snorted before going upstairs. Seeing that Xu Ejing had left, Nian Bing the security guard said, "No one is allowed to stay in the lobby. If you want to stay in the hotel, please come back tomorrow morning. I'm going to close the door. Please leave immediately." Nian Bing was stunned for a moment and frowned. "Are you picking on me? I don't think I've offended you." The security guard said coldly, "I'm just following the rules. Please leave." Nian Bing naturally wouldn't stoop to the level of an ordinary person. He had no choice but to walk out of Lanxin Hotel again. It was already late at night, and the October weather was slightly chilly. Nian Bing couldn't help but shiver as the night dew blew against his body. He hurriedly circulated the fire elements in his body, and only then did he feel a little better. Although the night dew brought a chill to him, Xu Ejing wasn't by his side at this moment. In the cold air, his mind gradually became active. "Xu Ejing sneaked out from home to look for me. This already proves that she has feelings for me. Xu Ejing likes me. Furthermore, she's not as weak as Long Ling. If she continues to follow me, who knows what else will happen on the way to the capital of the Ottoman Empire. If I can't control myself, then it'll be troublesome." Perhaps he didn't have feelings for Xu Ejing, but he definitely had desires. How could he remain calm in front of beauty? It was very, very difficult. In the depths of Nian Bing's heart, other than his mother, there was only one other woman. He pitied Long Ling, admired Luo Ro, and was even a little afraid of Xu Ejing. He was afraid of her hysterics, but he definitely didn't love her from the bottom of his heart. Therefore, he really didn't want to spend too much time with any of the three women. Even if he didn't fall for them, once Xu Ejing's feelings for him deepened, the matter would be more difficult to solve. He couldn't hit her or drive her away, right? Thinking of this, Nian Bing's mind raced, thinking of a suitable method. Suddenly, his heart moved. Why did Xu Ejing like him? Perhaps it was because of some of his advantages that attracted her. If he let her see more of his shortcomings, perhaps her feelings for him would gradually cool down. Xu Ejing was a girl who dared to love and dared to hate, and her temper was almost at the slightest provocation. "Xu Ejing, sorry, I can only do this." A strange expression appeared on his face. Nian Bing walked towards a dark street. Soon, he found his destination. In the middle of the night, there was only one kind of shop that didn't close, and that was a brothel. "Hey, mister, have you come to play? Although it's a little late now, we still have many girls here." A madam who looked to be in her 30s or 40s brought Nian Bing in. This was only a medium-sized brothel. As soon as he entered the door, the fragrance of cosmetics almost made Nian Bing fall down. At this time, he couldn't help but feel a little flustered. He knew nothing about brothels and didn't even know what a brothel did. After all, when Jia Ji taught him how to cook, it was impossible for him to also teach him about brothels. The reason why he knew about the existence of brothels was because he heard a conversation in Ice Snow City. It was a couple. The husband was like a frosted eggplant being scolded by his wife. From their conversation, Nian Bing heard that the husband went to a place called a brothel, and his wife couldn't tolerate it. He still remembered the soul-stirring scene at that time. If it wasn't for the fact that murdering one's husband was a serious crime, he didn't doubt that the wife would have used a kitchen knife to kill her husband. Later, He asked Long Ling what kind of place a brothel was. Long Ling, who had never lost her temper, blushed and scolded him a few times before running away. From then on, Nian Bing guessed that this so-called opportunity should be a place that men liked and women hated. Usually, when he walked on a road, he had seen a few brothels, so he could still distinguish them from the outside. Coughing awkwardly, Nian Bing looked at the brothel keeper whose eyes were shining and said, "Is there a place to stay here?" The last time he heard the couple quarrel, he vaguely heard the wife scolding the husband for not returning home at night in a brothel. Presumably, people could stay in a brothel. Originally, with Nian Bing's ordinary clothes, it wouldn't attract the brothel keeper's attention. However, his appearance was too handsome, causing the brothel keeper's heart to ripple. She thought to herself that if such a handsome young man could sleep with her for a night, it would be worth it even if she had to pay for it. Stay? Of course there is, but I don't know how Sir wants to stay. Girls, there are guests. Come and receive the guests. At this time, it was already late at night. Most of the prostitutes either already had guests or were ready to sleep. Hearing the call of the brothel keeper, the prostitutes who didn't have guests were impatient. One by one, they walked down from the attic and looked at the hall with sleepy eyes. When their gazes landed on Nian Bing, all the prostitutes stopped what they were doing. Nian Bing suddenly shivered all over. He saw 7 or 8 young women coming down from the stairs. Each of them wore thin clothes. Most of their arms and thighs were bare. Some of them didn't even cover their chests well, revealing their full cleavage. He hadn't been in society for a long time. When did he see such an erotic scene? He suddenly felt the blood in his body gradually boiling, and his heartbeat inexplicably accelerated. The prostitutes finally reacted. It was more appropriate to describe them as a swarm. In just an instant, they surrounded Nian Bing in the center. It was as if they had also learned martial arts. Their longing eyes and seductive postures were so moving. "Sir, come to my room. I am a famous pure jade girl." "What is a pure jade girl?" "Sir, look, is my place big? Come on, I will serve you well tonight. How about I give you a 20% discount?" 20% discount? "Sir, I'll give you a 40% discount. Okay? I'm so lonely tonight." Cold sweat flowed down from his forehead. Even when facing the Dragon King with a golden back, Nian Bing was not so nervous. He suddenly found that the method he chose was too bad. Such an erotic scene made him, a virgin, fall into infinite embarrassment. What should I do? What should I do now? He wanted to say something, but he really couldn't say it. Looking at the coy women, he found that he had a layer of goosebumps on his body. God, save me. Okay, girls, don't quarrel. Let this gentleman choose by himself. "Sir, who do you choose?" The procuress was experienced and knowledgeable. When she saw Nian Bing's embarrassed face, she knew that it was his first time to come to such a place. If it was someone else, she would be too lazy to pay attention to it. But Nian Bing's handsome appearance and stalwart figure really made the procuress tempted, so she took the initiative to come out and help. The procuress directed the girls to stand in a neat row, and she stuck to Nian Bing's side. She touched his arm with the fullness of her chest. "Sir, which girl do you want to choose? If you don't like them, what about me?" Nian Bing lowered his head to look at the madam. He had to admit that this madam, who looked to be in her 30s, was no less charming than those young girls. Furthermore, she was more mature. Her voluptuous figure, in particular, made him have the urge to spurt blood from his nose. God, is this a brothel? All the wisdom seemed to have disappeared. He asked blankly, how much does it cost to stay here for a night? Nian Bing's pure appearance made the procuress's heart itch, and some parts of her body began to change. "What money, sir? It's our honor to have you here. When the time comes, just give me a little. We have a lot of rooms here. You can choose one." Cough, then give me an empty room. I'll give you how much you want. I'll stay for one night and leave. Nian Bing's words immediately made the girls laugh. The procuress pinched the firm muscles on his forearm. "Oh, sir, don't you like us girls? When you come to us, there's no rule to sleep alone. You can choose one to accompany you." "Why is it so noisy, Mom? It's so late. Why don't you close the door? There won't be any guests." A lazy voice came from upstairs. Although it was scolding, he had to admit that her voice was very moving. The faces of the prostitutes in front of Nian Bing and the madam beside him all changed. One of the prostitutes muttered in a low voice, "It's over, it's over. Once she comes, I won't have a share of this little virgin." Nian Bing looked upstairs and saw a woman wearing a pink dress walking down the stairs. This woman's figure was well-proportioned and full. Her fair and pretty face was lightly powdered. Her body exuded an elegant smell. She seemed to be a little tired. She held onto the railing as she walked down the stairs. Her brows were slightly wrinkled, but she was able to make shuang xin li jie hua zhong xin li nali 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 nali. The brothel keeper sighed in her heart. Nianbing smiled apologetically and said, "Sir, look, this is our top courtesan. Although her head is a little high, it's definitely worth it. Rui, there's a guest." The girl slightly raised her head. When her hazy eyes met with Nian Bing's clear eyes, her beautiful big eyes suddenly lit up. She didn't lose her composure like the other prostitutes before. She slowly walked downstairs with a blooming smile on her face. She walked to Nian Bing and said, "Hello, sir. My name is Rui." Nian Bing had gradually adapted to the atmosphere here and was not a loss like before. He nodded slightly and said, "Hello." Rui turned to look at the procuress beside her. "Mom, let Rui entertain this gentleman today, okay?" The procuress wanted to say no, but Rui was the top prostitute of this brothel. Most of the guests here came because of her face. She could offend anyone, but she couldn't offend this money tree. She hurriedly said, "Okay, of course, Rui, then you take this gentleman to your room." A woman was always easier to deal with in a group of women. Although Nian Bing didn't fully understand the purpose of this brothel, he had a good impression of this elegant girl in front of him. It was better to go with her than to be entangled by a group of vulgar women. Rui held Nian Bing's hand, and they had different feelings at the same time. Rui felt that Nian Bing's hand was slender and strong, without calluses. His hand was very warm, but seemed to be as hard as steel. Nian Bing had a completely different feeling. Although it was not the first time he held a girl's hand, the feeling that Rui gave him was completely different. Her hand was very soft, as if there were no bones. What made Nian Bing feel most was the coldness of her hand. Her small hand was very soft, and it was very comfortable to hold. After going upstairs, Rui didn't say a word and directly led him to the innermost room of the corridor. The decoration in the room was mostly pink. The room was very large, and it was divided into inner and outer rooms, but there was no door in the middle. There was a big bed in the inner room, surrounded by a curtain. The whole room exuded a strange atmosphere. "Sir, please sit." Rui's voice suddenly lost its previous gentleness. She pulled Nian Bing to the round table in the outer room and pressed his shoulder to let him sit down. She poured a glass of wine and handed it to Nian Bing, and then sat down beside Nian Bing. Nian Bing drank the wine in one gulp, and a burning feeling rose in his stomach, which calmed him down a lot. However, he still asked a silly question. "Miss Rui, there's only one bed here. Where do I sleep? Why do you have to let the guest enter the room of one of you?" Rui was stunned and looked up at Nian Bing. "This is a brothel." "I know. Then why did you ask such a question?" There was a cold light in Rui's eyes. Nian Bing smiled bitterly and said, "To be honest, although I know this is a brothel, I don't know what a brothel does. Can you tell me?" Rui didn't answer the question and said, "Then what do you do?" Nian Bing looked at Rui's gradually clear eyes and faintly felt that something was wrong. "I am a chef." "A chef? Are you just a chef? I have seen a lot of people, but I have never seen a chef with such temperament like you. You are young, but you don't learn good things and come to a brothel as a ghost. I think you're not a good person." At the end, her voice was a little colder. Nian Bing frowned slightly and said, "Why is it that I am not a good person to come to a brothel?" Rui said disdainfully, "Men all think with their lower bodies. Don't you come here to vent your desires on women? When did you see women like us as human beings? You look good on the outside, but you are rotten on the inside." It was not until now that Nian Bing understood the real meaning of a brothel, and his heart was sweating. He hurriedly explained, "Miss Rui, don't misunderstand." Rui sneered and stood up. "Misunderstand? What is there to misunderstand? A man like you will make many women sad in the future." Nian Bing's eyes were cold and said, "Miss Rui, there is no enmity between us. Why are you so against me? Even if I came to a brothel to do that kind of thing, so what? You are supposed to serve me, not scold me here." The smile on Rui's face became colder. "Serve you? A dirty person like you wants to touch me? In that case, I'd better go." After knowing the real meaning of a brothel, although Nian Bing wanted to take the opportunity to drive Xu Edging away, he couldn't bear to stay in such a place. He didn't know much about the affairs between men and women. He didn't mean to look down on prostitutes, but he felt that it was inappropriate to do these things. He stood up and was about to leave, but suddenly felt dizzy. He sat down again unconsciously. "Do you still want to go?" Rui looked at Nian Bing coldly. "Poison." Nian Bing suddenly understood a lot. He subconsciously wanted to activate the magic scroll on his body, but he couldn't concentrate. "Miss Rui, I have no enmity with you. Why do you want to harm me?" Rui smiled. "When you go to hell, you can ask." Nian Bing's mind was blurred, and finally he couldn't hold on and fainted. "Sister, what's wrong with you today?" A nimble figure jumped out from inside. It was a young girl dressed in martial arts attire. Her appearance was somewhat similar to Rui's, but she had more heroic spirit. She glanced at Nian Bing and said, "This seems to be just an ordinary guest. Why did you make him unconscious? How do you solve this?" Rui said lightly, "Rumung, take him out of the city and kill him. Do it cleanly." "Sister, are you crazy? The organization strictly forbids killing people. Don't kill people who don't get paid." "You are." Rumung was obviously shocked by Rui. Rui glanced at Rumung sharply and said, "I'm just getting rid of evil for the people. What's wrong with that? Look at this man. He has a good appearance, but he goes to the brothel to fool around. He looks like he's only about 20 years old. If such a person is allowed to live in the world, I don't know how many women will be harmed by him in the future. Have you forgotten how I was cheated? Don't be afraid to kill him just because he's handsome. The more such a man is, the more he deserves to be killed." Her eyes showed monstrous hatred, and her whole body seemed to be trembling slightly. The hysteria made Rumung show a trace of fear. "Go, you know what to do." I naturally have a way to explain to the brothel keeper. Rui gave Nian Bing a fierce look and waved to Rumung. Rumung didn't say anything more. She pulled Nian Bing's clothes and lightly put him on her shoulder. It seemed to be effortless. She opened the window and jumped out like a leopard cat, disappearing in a few flashes. Looking at the departing figure of Ru Meng, Ru Yi's eyes were filled with tears. "None of the men are good. Handsome men are the scourge of the world. I want to kill every one of them. Only the handsome men are dead. Only then can the women live better lives." Ice Orchid City was a commercial city. Although it was located at the border of the two countries, the city gate was never closed at night. Rumung carried Nian Bing's body quietly out of the city and soon came to a quiet forest. She laid him flat on the ground. Does this person really deserve to be killed? There's no aura of fighting in his body. He's just an ordinary person. Sister is too much. She can't kill innocent people. Forget it. He's just an ordinary person anyway. I want to explain to him clearly and let him leave here quickly. The mainland is so big. Sister won't be able to see him in the future. He's really handsome. He's much more handsome than my previous brother-in-law. No wonder Sister had such a big reaction today. Speaking of this, Rumung shook her head helplessly. She took out a porcelain bottle and stuffed a pill into Nian Bing's mouth. In fact, she didn't know that it was because of her kindness that she saved her own life. Although Nian Bing lacked scrolls, he still had 4 automatic defense scrolls on him. The strongest one was level 6. If Rumung really wanted to kill him, the magic array would automatically trigger when it sensed that Nian Bing's life was threatened. With Rumung's current ability, he wouldn't even have a chance to dodge at close range. His whole body felt cold. Nian Bing woke up from his coma. Where is this? The darkness in front of him made him very alert. His mind immediately connected to the magic scrolls on him, ready to deal with any danger. "Mister, I'm really sorry. Hearing Ruming's voice, Nian Bing realized that there was another person beside him. He quickly stood up and took a few steps back, keeping a distance from Ruming. As Ruming's appearance was 60 to 70% similar to Rui, and his mind wasn't fully awake, he instantly mistook her for someone else. "Miss Rui, where's this place? Why did you bring me here?" Ruming said apologetically. "Mister, I'm not Rui. That's my sister. My name is Ruming. I'm really sorry about what happened today." After careful identification, Nian Bing realized that Ruming was different from Rui. Compared to Rui, Ruming was slightly thinner and taller than Rui. "Miss Ruming, I want to know what happened." Ruming was a little surprised. He didn't panic in the face of change. The handsome man in front of her wasn't as ordinary as he said. "Mister, don't misunderstand. It's like this. My sister works in the brothel for a reason. I can't tell you the specific reason. However, she's definitely not the kind of woman you think. She was hurt before, so she's more extreme. Mister, I have some money here. You should quickly leave here and don't go to Binglan City again." As she said this, she threw a few gold coins to Nianbing. Looking at the innocent girl in front of her, Nianbing said indifferently, "Miss Ruming, your sister poisoned me for no reason and you're not willing to explain the matter clearly. Does Binglan City belong to your family? Why can't you let me go back?" Ruming frowned slightly. "Why are you so stubborn? Do you want to die?" "Die? Your sister wants to kill me? I don't have any enmity with her. Why does she want to kill me?" Nianbing asked the doubts in her heart. At the same time, she scolded herself for being careless. She actually fell for it so easily. Ruming said helplessly, "I can't say anything about my sister. Anyway, this is all I can do. If you go back to the city, I can't save you. For your own life, it's better for you to leave." After saying this, she no longer entangled with Nianbing. His figure flashed a few times before he disappeared from Nianbing's line of sight. Nianbing stood in the same place. Various thoughts kept surging in her heart. Rui, Ruming, these two names kept appearing alternately. What was going on? She was really unlucky. It seemed that bad things couldn't be done. However, after being teased like this and almost losing her life, was she going to let it go just like that? No, at least she had to find out the truth. Her thoughts were connected with the spatial ring. Spatial magic elements revolved around Nian Bing's finger. The inconspicuous ring emitted a silver halo, and a black robe appeared first. Then, a strange skull mask silently appeared on the robe. Nian Bing first put on the mask, and then used the robe to cover her body. There was a cloak on top of the robe, and even her head was covered. It shrouded her easily recognizable long golden hair. I can finally use this identity again. I really didn't expect that I would use it for a brothel. Oh, great ice goddess, lend me your wrath and send me to the lost shore. Snowstorm. The temperature in the air gradually dropped as the blue light spots gathered around Nianbing. Snowflakes gradually appeared and revolved around her body. Directly chanting incantations to use magic was more troublesome. It required chanting to condense magic power, which would waste some time. But directly using scrolls to use magic, because enough magic power had been condensed on the scroll beforehand, the power of the magic could be fully displayed. Under the effect of the powerful magic power, the snowstorm forcibly lifted Nianbing's body and flew higher and higher. Rising into the air, she naturally saw the location of Binglan City and controlled the magic to fly towards the city. While flying, Nianbing carefully recalled everything that happened in the brothel. That woman named Rui was obviously not just a brothel. The two sisters must have some purpose for committing to the brothel. Just like what Ruming said, Rui must have been stimulated by something. When she first entered her room, she emitted not only coldness, but also some murderous intent. It was just that she didn't feel much at that time. The stimulation she received should be related to men. Moreover, it was a man who was somewhat similar to her. Just like when she first met that beautiful Annie and thought of her as her mother. However, the brothel was a filthy place. Why would they hide there? This was what she had to figure out. Thinking of this, Nianbing couldn't help but secretly rejoice. It wasn't that Ruming let her go, but that the cup of wine she unintentionally drank was only a knockout drug and not a poison that pierced the intestines. Otherwise, no matter how many magic scrolls she had on her, they would have been useless. At this time, he had already returned to Ice Orchid City. The entire city had fallen into a deep sleep. Nian Bing carefully controlled the blizzard under his feet. Before his magic power was exhausted, the blizzard would always be maintained. After this period of understanding magic, he now knew how to use magic power more rationally. Therefore, it was not difficult for him to maintain such a level 4 magic. At this time, he had already taken out his proud Heaven Blade and righteous Yang Blade. After all, he hadn't left the Ice Moon Empire yet. It was better not to use Morning Dew. Although it hadn't been long since he came to Ice Orchid City, Nian Bing's memory was very good. First, he flew over the city gate and found the Lanshin Hotel where he stayed. From the hotel, he immediately confirmed the location and flew towards the brothel. Perhaps it was because it was too late. The lights in the brothel were finally extinguished. Nian Bing floated in the air and had a bird's-eye view of the entire brothel. Soon, he found Rui's room and floated to the outside of the room. He hesitated for a moment. Just as he was about to take action, he heard a low voice coming from the room. His heart skipped a beat. He controlled the blizzard and pressed his body against the window to listen to the voice inside. Ru Meng seemed to have just returned. She whispered to Rui, "Sister, why aren't you asleep yet?" Rui said coldly, "Is everything done? Is it done cleanly? In this place where good and bad people mix together, we must not leave any traces behind." Ru Meng hesitated for a moment and said, "It's done. Sister, don't worry." Rui sighed softly and said, "Sister, I know that sometimes you are in a difficult position. You are too soft-hearted. You are not suitable to be an assassin. After we return from our shift, I will report to the Lord and ask him to transfer you to another position. Perhaps you can even become a warrior on the surface." "Sister, that's impossible. I was trained as a spy. How can I become a warrior?" There seemed to be a little sadness in Ru Meng's tone. Rui said, "In fact, there is nothing impossible. After all, you're not like me. I have already been exposed in front of people, but you have always been in the dark. Believe me, there will be a chance." Hearing this, Nian Bing suddenly understood a lot. These two sisters were obviously not from the Ice Moon Empire, but came here to be spies. Through the various guests in this brothel, they inquired about all kinds of information and then sent it back to their country. It seemed that he could only forget about his own matter. It was better not to get involved in this kind of conflict between countries. Thinking of this, he controlled the blizzard and was just about to leave. When he turned around, the black robe on his body inadvertently swept the window, making a slight friction sound. "Who is it?" In the low voice, a cold light came out of the window. Although it was only judged by the sound, the cold light's target was Nian Bing's chest. Nian Bing secretly knew that it was not good. He did not activate the magic scroll to protect himself. He raised his right hand, and the proud Heaven Blade transformed into dozens of blade shadows, cutting the cold light from different directions. Chapter 44. Ding! Dozens of collisions sounded as if there was only one sound because of the high speed. Nian Bing only felt a strong impact on his face. His chest felt like it was hit by a huge hammer, and his body flew backward with the help of the impact. If it wasn't for Ao Tian Dao's own blade aura that blocked most of the impact, this collision alone was enough to injure him. It was a shuttle-shaped dart that flew out, but it was already crushed by Ao Tian's sharp blade. Nian Bing's eyes revealed a clear light as he controlled the blizzard to send himself dozens of meters away. The window opened, and two figures rushed out with two balls of cold light. Although the combat energy was strong, it was impossible for them to fly. When the Rui sisters found that the enemy was floating in the air, they were shocked. Before they landed, they each shot 3 darts at Nian Bing's direction. Unfortunately, Nian Bing was already prepared. Although the combat energy attached to the darts was very strong, he only controlled the blizzard to support his body and dodge the darts. The magicians in the air had more or less an advantage over the warriors on the ground. Rui and Rumeng each held a gleaming sword in their hands. Rui stopped Rumeng, who was about to continue attacking, and shouted coldly at Nian Bing in the air, "Who are you?" Nian Bing said indifferently, This is not the place to talk. Follow me if you have the guts." He deliberately lowered his voice and added some hoarseness to it, so that the Rui sisters couldn't recognize him. As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately controlled the blizzard to fly out of the city. The Rui sisters looked at each other. They knew that their identity had been exposed, and they had no choice but to chase after him. The blizzard was the fastest speed a magician could achieve in short-distance flight. Although Nian Bing saw that the Rui sisters had the strength of a swordsman, it was impossible for them to catch up with his blizzard. He controlled the speed and kept a certain distance from the Rui sisters. He led them out of Ice Orchid City and ran into the wild. Ru Yi and Ru Meng followed Nian Bing. They were also secretly scheming. There were very few magicians on the continent. They knew this very well. Because of this, they had no experience in fighting with magicians, let alone being confident. Ru Meng was anxious. Just as he was at a loss for what to do, he suddenly heard Rui say in a low voice, "Graft." Green fighting aura emanated from Rui's body. She suddenly leaped into the air. Hearing her sister's words, Ru Meng immediately understood. She placed the long sword in her hand into her mouth and similarly erupted with green fighting aura. She pushed Rui's feet up with both her palms and sent her sister flying. In that instant, her Do Chi, which came from the same source as Rui's, was completely transferred into Rui's body. Rui's Do Chi immediately shone brightly and traversed 10 feet in the air. She caught up to Nian Bing and locked her Do Chi onto Nian Bing. She held her sword with both hands. He slashed with all his might. The green Do Chi formed a dazzling green arc of light in the air, and it slashed toward Nian Bing with a twisted light. Feeling the dangerous Do Chi, Nian Bing's heart skipped a beat. She almost couldn't withstand the impact of the previous dart, let alone this slash with all her strength. The protection scroll was instantly activated. The ice wall spell condensed a foot-thick ice to block the Do Chi slash. Combined with Ru Yi and Ru Meng's Do Chi, the power of this attack was terrifying. The meter-thick ice cracked under the extremely sharp Do Chi slash. The green light penetrated the ice wall. Although it was weakened a lot, it still slashed towards Nian Bing's direction. Nian Bing chose to use the ice wall spell not to block the opponent, but to cut off the Do Chi that locked onto her and to slow down the opponent's attack. When the green light slashed his previous position, he had already flown out with the help of the blizzard. Ru Yi's Do Chi was exhausted and fell to the ground. Ru Meng caught up with her sister, and the two stopped at the same time. The magic displayed made their hearts tighten. Nian Bing floated 10 feet away from the two girls. The blizzard was not over, but under the effect of his powerful spiritual power, it was constantly compressed. This kind of mutated snowstorm, even the sorcerer back then was fearful of it. It was naturally the best choice to use it as a shield. The two ladies are using wind attribute Do Chi. Nian Bing said indifferently. Ru Yi took a step forward and stared firmly at Nian Bing. "Who are you?" Nian Bing said. "You can call me the Demon Killer." Ru Yi said coldly. "So, you heard our previous conversation?" Nian Bing smiled indifferently. "I don't care which country you are spies from, but I have to care if you treat people's lives like grass. Miss Ru Yi, the man you dealt with before, is the target of my protection. For the sake of Miss Ru Meng's kindness, I don't want to make things difficult for you. You can go, but I hope that Miss Ru Yi will be more cautious in the future. Those who kill will be killed." Ru Yi looked at her sister. "Meng, you..." Ru Meng did not dare to look at her sister's eyes and could not help but lower her head. Ru Yi looked coldly at Nian Bing. "Magicians have no advantage when facing warriors. You don't want to make things difficult for us, but I want to make things difficult for you. If you have the ability, don't run." The greatest feature of Wind Attribute Do Chi was that it increased the user's attack speed. After a few flashes, Ru Yi had already arrived in front of Nian Bing. Nian Bing did not retreat. With a cold snort, the blizzard condensed to a diameter of 1 foot instantly exploded. The power of the compressed blizzard was no less than that of a 6th grade spell. Ru Yi only felt that she had encountered a huge wall. Countless spinning ice blades seemed to want to cut her body. The do chi that protected her body was torn to pieces by the crazy, spinning ice blades. At the moment of the blizzard's explosion, her body that was charging forward was suddenly blown away. Countless tears appeared on her clothes, and traces of blood could be seen, revealing her white skin. Blood spurted out. Under the effect of the blizzard, Ru-Yi was immediately seriously injured. Indeed, in a one-on-one situation, a magician was definitely at a disadvantage. However, this only applied to magicians who did not have the time to recite spells. If a warrior was faced with an opponent who had already prepared magic, then the chance of winning was very small. Sister. Ru-Meng caught Ru-Yi's body. Ru-Yi's body was very cold. The cold poison of the blizzard had invaded her meridians. For Ru-Yi, who wanted to kill her, Nian Bing did not have the slightest mercy. Fortunately, Ru-Yi's do chi was not weak, so she was not completely torn apart by the blizzard. Great ice element. Condense. Become the ice of the ancient cold river. Become the ice of the solid moonlight. The fusion of ice. Appear. The two-color ice ball. While Ru-Meng was taking care of her sister, Nian Bing recited another spell. A huge two-color ice ball appeared in front of him. For a warrior, he did not dare to be the slightest bit negligent. At this time, Ru-Yi was already on the verge of death. Blood kept flowing out of her mouth. Her most serious injury was not the wound in front of her body. It was the cold air that shook in her body when the blizzard broke out. At this time, the blood in her body was constantly coagulating. When her heart and meridians froze, it would be the moment of her death. The idea of being protective of the fairer sex never appeared in Nian Bing's mind. He only knew that his own life was the most precious. You, what did you do to my sister? I'll fight with you. Ru-Meng put down Ru-Yi's body and rushed toward Nian Bing with her sword. Dozens of wind elemental do aura slashes shot out from the sword. Nian Bing was surprised to find that Ru-Meng's do aura seemed to be purer than her sister's. However, the dual-colored ice sphere had already been formed. This was a 6-tier spell, and it was definitely not something that the 4th-tier low-grade ice wall spell from before could compare to. The dual-colored ice sphere kept changing its position under Nian Bing's control. Apart from leaving some traces on the ice ball, Ru-Meng's attack could not pose any threat to Nian Bing at all. For Ru-Meng, Nian Bing still had some good feelings. At least, her heart was much kinder than Ru-Yi's. Miss Ru-Meng, if you don't want your sister to die, then stop. Blocking Ru-Meng's attack again, the two-color ice ball shone with cold light. In the piercing cold, dozens of ice cones shot out, immediately forcing Ru-Meng to retreat. Ru-Meng gasped for breath as she looked at the powerful mage in front of her. You killed my sister, and you're still making sarcastic remarks? Nian Bing said indifferently. Your sister was only injured by the shock. What was fatal was the invasion of the cold current. Now, only I can bring her back to life. You should understand. It's easy for me to kill you. There's no need to lie to you. The biggest feature of the two-color ice ball was its lethality. If the enemy was a group, it could continuously send out ice cones with tyrannical attack power, until it exploded. After this, 6th-grade magic was formed. Unless the opponent had the strength of a great swordsman or above, it was impossible to break the two-color ice ball. In Nian Bing's calm voice, Ru-Meng calmed down. Indeed, if the other party wanted to kill her, it would be enough to attack her with a previous magic. That was simply unstoppable. Then are you willing to save my sister? I beg you, save my sister. I'll save her as a relative. My sister's nature is not bad. It's only because she was too stimulated in the past that she hates men. The two-color ice ball disappeared. Nian Bing walked step by step towards Rui. It was very clear that Rui's life was now in his hands. Ru-Meng would never attack him again. I also don't want to kill people. It's just that, with your sister's temperament, she should be taught a lesson. Please take off her clothes. What do you want to do? Hearing this, Ru-Meng was shocked. She stood in front of Nian Bing and looked at him vigilantly. The sword in her hand was raised again. Looking at the skull mask on Nian Bing's face, she couldn't help but feel a strong fear in her heart. All along, she had listened to her sister's arrangements and had long developed a dependence. Rui took care of her in every possible way. At this time, Rui had fallen into a coma, and there was a powerful enemy in front of her that she couldn't fight against. She really didn't know what to do. Nian Bing frowned and said, "Miss Ru Ming, your sister has a lot of wounds on her body. If you don't take off her clothes, how can I treat her? Don't worry, I have no interest in her body at all." He had seen many beautiful women, and any one of them was not something that Rui's beauty could compare to. Especially when compared to Feng Nu's beauty, Rui was just the light of a firefly. Hearing Nian Bing's words, Ru Meng came to her senses and hurriedly dodged to block Nian Bing's path. She squatted down and supported Rui to lean on her body. You are really willing to save my sister." Nian Bing nodded and said, "Of course, I have no enmity with you. However, I hope that after your sister comes back to life, you'll persuade her to not have the heart to disregard human life. Otherwise, the next time we meet, the word kill will fall on her head. Take off your clothes." As he said that, Nian Bing raised the Zhengyang saber in his left hand and pointed the stone of fire god at the hilt towards Rui's forehead. What other thing could be more effective than the stone of fire god to remove the cold poison? Under the effect of the fire element, the scorching hot air flowed down from between her eyebrows, and Rui's originally pale face suddenly became a little rosy. Seeing that Nian Bing really wanted to save her sister, Ru Ming immediately let out a sigh of relief and put down the long sword. With trembling hands, she took off her sister's clothes. After the outer long skirt was taken off, it was the inner garment, and after the inner garment was the undergarment. It was extremely troublesome, and Nian Bing was dumbstruck as he muttered, "Girls are really troublesome. Miss Ru Meng, you'd better move quickly. Otherwise, the cold poison did not take her life, but she will die from excessive blood loss. I will have no other way." Hearing this, Ru Meng's hands stopped trembling and quickly removed the obstacles on her sister's body. When everything was removed, Nian Bing suddenly became sluggish for a moment. He had to admit that Miss Rui, who had the strength of a sword master, had a perfect figure. This was the first time he saw a girl's body, and he could not help but feel a little thirsty. Fortunately, he was wearing a mask on his face. Otherwise, Ru Meng would see his flushed face, and he did not know what to think. Taking a deep breath, Nian Bing forced himself to calm down and put the undulating peaks in front of him to the back of his mind. He swallowed his saliva and pressed his hands on Rui's delicate body, chanting the spell he was familiar with. After months of learning in the Magician's Guild, he was no longer the Nian Bing who was not familiar with ice spells. "Great ice element, I beg you, melt your kind heart into water and turn it into a holy spring to heal the wounds. Under the witness of the goddess of water, appear, the source of healing, holy water spell." With the completion of the spell, a soft blue light condensed on Nian Bing's hands. In an instant, his hands turned completely white like jade. His hands trembled like waves and pressed on the air. A white halo floated around Rui's fair and plump body. Under the effect of the white light, the dozens of wounds of different depths stopped bleeding immediately. Nian Bing closed his eyes and let the gentle water element flow on his fingertips. When he felt that the holy water spell was completely formed, his hands moved. His hands touched the wounds on Rui's body. The milky white light replaced the bright red of the wounds, and the viscous holy water completely sealed the ghastly wounds. Soon, the milky white liquid completely merged into the wounds. One could almost see with the naked eye that the wounds of different depths were constantly healing. After taking a deep breath, Nian Bing felt a little tired. After all, he had used a few powerful spells consecutively and had used up a lot of his mana. "That's enough. Help your sister put on her clothes. Don't touch her body for now. Let the holy water completely fuse with the wound. You can bring her back in about an hour. Rest assured, the holy water spell I used is a healing spell of the 5th step. It was originally used to treat internal injuries. For this kind of ordinary external injuries, the holy water spell is extravagant, but it won't leave a scar. Let her have a good sleep. When she wakes up tomorrow, everything will be fine." Hearing that there wouldn't even be a scar left, Ru Meng's eyes immediately showed a grateful look. At this time, She completely believed that Yin Bing didn't mean to hurt them. Mr. Demon Killer Envoy, thank you. I thank you on behalf of my sister. If there is a chance in the future, I will definitely repay you. Yin Bing said with some amusement. What is there to thank me for? Don't forget, I was the one who injured your sister. I hope she can learn her lesson. Miss Rumeng, what kind of stimulation did your sister suffer before? Rumeng hesitated for a moment. However, when she saw Yin Bing's clear gaze through the mask, a strong sense of trust surged in her heart. She sighed softly and said, It's like this. Our parents died because of the plague when my sister was 7 years old and I was 5 years old. When she was young, my sister was very strong. In order to take care of me, she begged on the street every day. At that time, she was like a boy. The little beggars of the same age around us didn't dare to bully us. My sister has always been very fierce to outsiders. Until my sister was 10 years old, we were taken in by our benefactor. Our benefactor took care of our food and clothing and taught us skills. This gave us the opportunity to stand out. Mr. Demon Killer Envoy, please don't ask us which side we belong to. Even if we die, my sister and I will never betray our benefactor. Yin Bing smiled and said, I'm not interested in that. I just want to know what kind of stimulation your sister suffered that made her become so hysterical. Rumeng's eyes revealed a trace of tears. Among the orphans taken in by our benefactor, there was a very outstanding boy. He was very handsome. Moreover, his temperament was gentle. His ability was obvious to all. At the age of 20, he had already reached the realm of great swords master. At that time, we once said that one day he would definitely become a generation of swordsmen. At that time, I was 15 years old and my sister was 17 years old. I don't know when, but my sister had already secretly fallen in love with him, but she never dared to confess, burying her love in her heart. Because my sister knew that he liked the benefactor's daughter. Although the benefactor's daughter only came back once a year, but at that time, he was always the happiest. My sister knew that she couldn't compare with the benefactor's daughter, so she could only bury her feelings in her heart. Finally, 2 years ago, the benefactor's daughter came back home again. Being outstanding, he couldn't bear it anymore and confessed to the benefactor's daughter. However, what he received was rejection, a ruthless rejection, a rejection without any room for negotiation. At that time, he was greatly stimulated and ran out to drink alone. As the saying goes, caring makes one confused. My sister chased after him. That night, they didn't come back. Although my sister didn't say anything, I guessed that something had happened between them. Since then, my sister and the benefactor's relationship was established. I was very happy for my sister, but I always had a feeling that something was wrong. That year was the happiest year of my sister's life. They lived together and flew together while carrying out missions. My sister didn't forget to take care of me and didn't care about anything else. Seeing my sister so happy, I didn't have the heart to say anything. I just secretly prayed, hoping that my guess was wrong. However, things didn't go as I wished. After they dated for a whole year, when the benefactor's daughter came back home again, the outstanding man was just like before, caring for the benefactor's daughter in every possible way. Nothing had changed. The benefactor's daughter still didn't pay attention to him. After the benefactor's daughter left, my sister and the benefactor's daughter quarreled for the first time. I clearly remember that they quarreled very fiercely at that time. I was worried about my sister, so I kept listening under their window. My sister asked him why he still couldn't forget the benefactor's daughter. He heartlessly hurt my sister. He said to my sister that the relationship between him and my sister was just a substitute for the benefactor's daughter. She was just a sustenance for his feelings. He also said that in this life, he would only love the benefactor's daughter. Even if he really married my sister in the future, he would only love the benefactor's daughter. My sister was a strong person. From that moment on, her heart died. She didn't say anything because he was the benefactor's person. My sister's killing intent had already dissipated. However, my sister asked the benefactor for a transfer and came here. Using the identity of a prostitute to cover herself, she continued to work for the benefactor. I think, if it wasn't to repay the benefactor, I'm afraid my sister would have already thought of committing suicide. I saw her crying in the middle of the night more than once. My sister was really suffering. Tonight, the friend you protected came to the brothel. He was really handsome, even more handsome than the person my sister once loved. His gentle smile was somewhat similar to that person's, so my sister's heart twitched and she wanted to kill him. Mr. Masha Envoy, I apologize to you and your friend on behalf of my sister. Please forgive my sister for her pitiful experience. In the future, I will definitely persuade her not to do stupid things again. After listening to Ru Ming's narration, Nian Bing's heart trembled slightly. Everyone had their own experience. If compared with Rui and Rui, perhaps she was luckier. Her eyes fell on Rui's still pale face. She didn't seem to be so hateful anymore. The trace of resentment in her heart completely disappeared. Nian Bing sighed and said, I'm sorry, Miss Ru Ming. I didn't know your sister had experienced so many hardships. I should apologize to her and sincerely wish her the best. I hope she can find a good home in the future. However, please tell your sister that all handsome men are not necessarily bad people. At least, my friend isn't. Well, take your sister back. I will escort you. Be careful in the future. Ru Ming carefully picked up her sister and returned to the city under the escort of Nian Bing. After sending them back to the brothel, Nian Bing quietly left. At this time, the sky in the distance had already revealed a touch of white. Not in a hurry to return to the restaurant, Nian Bing found a quiet corner, put away his Masha Envoy outfit, sat cross-legged, and released his spirit to perceive everything around him. At the same time, he slowly restored his magical power. Although the recovery speed was slower, but because of the release of his spirit, he could perceive what was going on around him in advance, so it was relatively safer. When Nian Bing sensed that the streets were already bustling with activity, he suddenly realized that something was amiss. Waking up from meditation, the special nature of ice and fire made his magical power recover very quickly. At this time, he had reached the best state again. Standing up, he patted the dust off his body. Now it was time to go back. He believed that Rui should have also woken up, but he didn't know how her body was. After the first time using magic to hurt people, Nian Bing felt a little guilty. He was very sympathetic to Rui's experience. After all, he also had a similar experience. When they reached the main street, Nian Bing identified the direction and walked towards the hotel. He wasn't in a hurry. He had already digested most of the food he had eaten last night. He wanted to find a place to fill his stomach first. He would let Xue Jing wait. The worse her impression of him was, the more likely she would stop pestering him. Thinking of this, he simply slowed down his pace. There were quite a few places to buy breakfast. However, Nian Bing could tell from a few glances that the chefs in these breakfast shops were not very good at cooking. However, he had no choice but to make do with it for now. He casually found a relatively clean breakfast shop and sat down. He ordered a bowl of porridge, 2 steamed buns, and a plate of salted vegetables. These basic food, the taste should not be too bad. While eating the food he ordered, Nian Bing looked at the street. He suddenly found that across the street from his breakfast shop, there was a shop selling kitchenware. His heart was moved. He secretly thought that now that he had the space ring, he did not need to carry anything with him. Since that was the case, why not buy some kitchenware and put in the space ring? After all, just a kitchen knife was not enough. Besides barbecuing, there was no way to effectively cook. Yes, buy some kitchenware, and buy some seasonings. This way, it would be more convenient to carry them with him. Thinking of this, he sped up the movement of his mouth. After filling his stomach, he immediately crossed the street and walked into the kitchenware shop. The kitchenware shop looked very clean. On both sides of the wall, there were all kinds of kitchenware hanging. Although it wasn't a high grade, it was enough for ordinary cooking. A short man in his 40s came up and said, "Sir, do you want to buy kitchenware? We have everything here. You can choose whatever you want." Nian Bing casually picked up an iron pot and tapped it with his finger, making a crisp sound. He looked at the texture of the iron pot and could not help but shake his head. The quality was too poor. He was afraid that if his fire magic was just a little stronger, this pot would be destroyed. The short man saw that Nian Bing was not satisfied and quickly said, "Sir, if these ordinary goods are not to your discerning eyes, I have better ones here." "Oh, okay, let me see. It would be best if you have a full set. That way I could choose one by one. Nian Bing didn't have much hope. As long as the kitchen utensils were sturdy and resilient enough to withstand his ice and fire magic, it would be enough. The short man said, "What a coincidence. I have a set of authentic kitchenware from Sky Spring Pavilion. Please wait a moment." Sky Spring Pavilion? Nian Bing had heard ghost chef Cha Ji mention this name before. According to Cha Ji's description, Sky Spring Pavilion was one of the best kitchenware workshops in the world. The kitchenware they produced had high hardness, good rigidity, resistance to abrasion and corrosion, and other characteristics. Although they were not famous, they were still good kitchenware that was hard to come by. Most good chefs would use the kitchenware they produced there. Because Sky Spring Pavilion was extremely famous, the price of the kitchenware they produced was rather outrageous. Any one of them would cost a few gold coins, and the whole set would probably cost a few purple gold coins. Ordinary kitchenware only cost 2 or 3 silver coins to buy a set. The difference in price was 100 times. However, Nian Bing did not care about money. If the boss here could really take out the good things produced by Sky Spring Pavilion, he would not be stingy. As the saying goes, in order to do a good job, one must first sharpen the tools. For a chef, the better the tools, the more he could display his full ability when cooking. After a while, the short man came out with a pile of boxes that were taller than him. It looked like he was struggling. He placed the boxes on the ground and said while panting, "Sir, take a look. These are all good things produced by Sky Spring Pavilion. Although the price is a little higher, it is definitely worth the money." Nian Bing walked forward curiously and opened the box at the top. There was an iron pot inside, and the pot was completely gray. He turned the pot around and saw a diamond-shaped mark engraved on the bottom of the pot. The words Sky Spring Pavilion were engraved on it. This wok was obviously much heavier than the previous one. It was at least 4 times heavier than the previous one. The thickness of the wok was also more suitable. When Nian Bing held the handle, his wrist and the handle became one. It felt very comfortable. Nian Bing's wrist trembled slightly as he did the action of holding the wok. Everything was very natural and harmonious. This kind of heavy wok was exactly what Nian Bing liked. He tapped the body of the wok lightly. The quality of the metal was quite good. When he tapped the body of the wok, there was a deep and resounding echo. It was very comfortable to listen to. "Boss, is this kitchenware produced by Sky Spring Pavilion?" The boss was stunned for a moment and said, "Of course it is. This is the treasure that I specially bought from Sky Spring Pavilion. If not for the fact that you know how to make kitchenware, I would not take it out." Chapter 45. Nian Bing looked at him and said, "How much is this pot?" The boss probed, "This pot should be sold for a gold coin, but since you seem to be interested, I'll give you half price, 5 silver coins. Isn't that cheap?" Nian Bing put the iron pot back into the box and said calmly, "Then you should keep this treasure of the store." After he finished speaking, he walked out without looking back. Mister, don't go. The price is negotiable. Just name a price." The boss hurriedly called out to Nian Bing. Nian Bing turned around and looked at him. "If you want a full set of tableware, I'll pay a gold coin. If you want to sell it, then sell it. If you don't want to sell it, then forget it. This is clearly a fake. It's not from Sky Spring Pavilion." The boss was dumbfounded. "Mister, you can't say things like that. How do you know that this is a fake?" Nian Bing smiled indifferently and said, "The material is a product of Sky Spring Pavilion. The color is a bit darker than this, and it's also a bit heavier. Also, the mark is slightly different. Sky Spring Pavilion's mark should be a triangle. For your full set of tableware, a gold coin is already a very high price. If I'm not wrong, you must have bought it from somewhere at a low price." The boss said with a bitter face, "Mister, even if it's a fake, there are so many of them. 1 gold coin is too little." Nian Bing snorted. "You think it's too little? Then you'll have to find another buyer. For this kind of fake, I'll pay at most 8 silver coins elsewhere." After saying that, she pretended to leave. Okay. Fang Zheng, you're also the first customer today. I'll sell it to you for 1 gold coin. Sigh, I'm losing money." The boss reluctantly made a concession. Nian Bing took out a gold coin and handed it to the boss. She picked up a pile of kitchen utensils and left the shop, watching his back as he left. The short boss snorted and muttered to himself, "What an idiot." Even though he knew it was a fake, he still bought it. "I only bought it for 3 silver coins. Now I've made a lot of money. Ha ha." One had to know that 1 gold coin was enough for a family of 3 to live for half a month. After leaving the store, Nian Bing was also rejoicing. What an idiot. It was clearly the real thing, but he sold it as a fake. He had made a huge profit this time. The kitchen utensils of the Sky Spring Pavilion were not fake. The reason why he dared to bargain with the shop owner was because he knew that the shop owner was the owner of the shop. It was mainly because of the boss's offer. In the Heaven Spring Pavilion, even the purchase price would not be lower than 1 gold coin, but the owner wanted to sell a pot to him for 5 silver coins. Thinking about how Binglan City was a commercial city, he easily deduced that the Sky Spring Pavilion's kitchen utensils must have been bought from someone who didn't know how to cook. Sky Spring Pavilion was located in the Huarong Empire, and it was hard for ordinary people to see their products. Nian Bing knew that the owner didn't know what was good for him, so she naturally lowered the price. After finding a place where no one was around, Nian Bing inspected every piece of kitchen utensils and put them into her space ring. This time, even if they had to sleep in the wild again, he wouldn't have to worry about not having the tools to cook. On the way back to the hotel, he bought all kinds of spices and seasonings that he needed. Inside the space ring, other than his precious knives, was simply a mobile kitchen. Silence. "Are you awake?" When Nian Bing returned to the hotel, it was already daytime, so naturally there were no security guards to stop him. He directly went to his room upstairs. When the door opened, Xu Edging appeared in front of Nian Bing with a dissatisfied face. "Where did you go last night?" Nian Bing smiled and said, "I was sleeping on the sofa in the lobby." Xu Edging snorted and said, "You're still lying. When I came back last night, I brought a blanket for you, but you disappeared. Where did you go?" As she said that, she pulled Nian Bing into the room. Hearing Xu Edging's words, Nian Bing's heart couldn't help but feel warm. But when he thought of his freedom in the future, he hardened his heart and said, "I just found a place to stay for the night." Xu Edging frowned and said, "It's so late. How can there be a place to stay? Hurry up and confess. Where did you go?" Anxious to ask Nian Bing where he went last night, she didn't even close the door. "Brothel, is that okay? Don't you think you're annoying?" Nian Bing pretended to be impatient. "What?" Xu Edging's voice suddenly became sharp. You say it again. Where did you go?" "Brothel. What's wrong? It's more comfortable to sleep there." Nian Bing put on an indifferent expression. Xu Edging's originally rosy face suddenly became a little pale. She raised her hand and pointed at Nian Bing. You actually went to that kind of place?" And Nian Bing said indifferently, "It's my freedom to go wherever I want. Although we're friends, but you don't have the right to restrict my freedom. I'm also a man. Isn't it normal to go to a brothel?" Xu Edging's voice trembled. Good Nian Bing. I came all the way here to chase you, and you actually treat me like this?" Nian Bing blinked his eyes. "It's not as exaggerated as Qianli, right?" "Silence. I said this is my own matter. I treat you as a friend, so I told you the truth." Anger made Xu Edging's pale face turn red. "Last night, I asked you to stay with me, but you made all sorts of excuses. But you went to brothel. Why? You tell me why?" Nian Bing walked to the side and sat down. At this time, he was also a little nervous. He didn't know if he should continue. So he took a deep breath and said, "It's very simple. We're friends, and prostitutes don't need to take responsibility. You." With a whoosh, the sword was unsheathed. Xu Edging pointed at Nian Bing. "In your eyes, I'm not even as good as a prostitute?" Nian Bing shook his head and said, "No." Silence. "You have to understand that there's no other relationship between us besides being friends. I don't feel that I did anything wrong. This is the second time you've pointed a sword at me. I also want to ask you a question. What right do you have to interfere with my freedom? I've never said that I'm a gentleman, nor did I force you to walk with me. If you're not satisfied, you can leave at any time. I think Uncle Shui is looking forward to your return. I'll kill you." Xu Edging had already lost her reason in her rage. Nian Bing originally wanted to take advantage of her fiery temper, but he didn't know why. But now he felt somewhat unbearable in his heart. The sword, with a red light of Do Qi, directly pierced Nian Bing's chest. Xu Edging, who was in a rage, had long since lost her misgivings. Just as Nian Bing was about to activate the ice wall scroll, a blue ray of light blocked in front of him without any warning. There was a soft ding sound. Xu Ejing's sword unexpectedly flew away and stabbed into the wall at the side. With a flash of blue light, a long sword was placed on her shoulder. The chi completely locked Xu Ejing, making her unable to move an inch. Nian Bing looked at the person in front of him in surprise. President Carlo. The person who came was Carlo. His gaze fell on Xu Ejing. He calmly said, "Fire attribute Do Chi, drifting erratically like clouds, but when it erupts, it's like toppling mountains and overturning seas. This should be Fire Cloud Do Chi. What's your relationship with blood, devouring, soul, extinguishing, snow, martial snow?" Nian Bing's breath stimulated Xu Ejing's body. He glared at Carlo in front of him. "It's none of your business. Get lost, I'm going to kill him." Carlo somewhat pondered and looked at Nian Bing. "Noisy is noisy. Why do you have to fight? Are you willing to kill him? If it's just a misunderstanding, just make it clear. Little girl, emotional matters can't be solved by impulse." He, who was experienced in accidents, had already read a lot of things from Xu Ejing's love-hate eyes. Xu Ejing stared blankly for a moment and angrily said, "Get lost. What misunderstanding?" He himself admitted to going to the brothel. Is this still a misunderstanding? "Let me go, I'm going to kill him." Nian Bing stood up, walked to Carlo's side, and said, "Silence, calm down. I have my own life. You also have your own life. We don't belong to the same world. If what I did made you angry, then I'm willing to apologize to you, but I will never change anything because of you, and at the same time, I don't want you to change because of me. President Carlo, let her go." The sword light in Carlo's hand disappeared, and the breath that locked onto Xu Ejing's body disappeared. Nian Bing walked to the side, pulled the sword from the wall, and handed it to Xu Ejing. "I have a protection scroll on me. You can't hurt me." "I'm sorry, Jingjing. Perhaps I've disappointed you, but this is my nature. Rather than letting you know me in the future, it's better to make it clear now." Taking the sword from Nian Bing, Xu Ejing's hand was slightly trembling. "Why? Why do you all treat me like this? What's wrong with me? Am I not good enough for you? As soon as I heard the news of you leaving, I immediately chased after you. I was more willing to accompany you to the Ottoman Empire. But what about you? What did you do? Are you worthy of my heart?" Nian Bing was silent and secretly said in his heart, "I'm sorry, silence. I don't want to reject you, but I don't have the qualifications to accept your love now. There's only hatred in my heart for the revenge of my parents. I can't let anything distract me. Silence. You will definitely find a better home than me. I will always bless you." In Nian Bing's heart, the woman with the highest position was undoubtedly Feng Nu. Maybe because Feng Nu was the first girl he saw, or maybe because Feng Nu was the most beautiful girl among all. In his heart, Feng Nu's position was almost unshakable. Even so, Nian Bing did not express anything to Feng Nu, because he knew that he did not have the qualifications. Before he avenged his parents, he did not have the qualifications to find his own love. Everything had to wait until after he took revenge. But even he did not know how long that would take, so he did not want to hurt any girl. So he could only choose to escape and withdraw and work hard to improve his own strength. That was what he pursued. Seeing that Nian Bing did not speak, Xu Ejing's anger in her heart increased, and the combat energy on her sword loomed. But she, who had always done things according to her own preferences, could not stab out, no matter how hard she tried. It was not because of the unfathomable Carlo beside her, nor was it because of the magic scroll hidden by Nian Bing. Looking at the handsome man in front of her, although she was angry in her heart, she did not know why, but an indescribable feeling made her unable to make up her mind to hurt him. Tears rolled down her face. Xu Ejing fiercely threw the sword to the ground and let the tears flow, turning into a red cloud and floating away. The person who had always wanted to get rid of was gone, but Nian Bing's heart was even heavier. "Silence. Have a safe journey and return to Ice City as soon as possible. That is the place where you belong." Carlo took 2 steps forward, picked up the sword on the ground, and looked at it carefully, then said, "Not a bad sword, fire attribute. The sword itself was made with crimson steel, using the 100 refinements method. Using this sword can make the fire attribute combat energy better, a rare weapon. Mr. Magician, don't you think it's a pity? Nian Bing sighed, took the sword in her hand, and said, It has already happened. There is no pity. The sword is a good sword, but I'm not a good person. Call me Nian Bing. Carlos smiled slightly and said, This girl's appearance is not bad. I can see. Although her temper is a bit fiery. But her nature is still very good. Why do you have to be thousands of miles away from her? Am I? You also heard it. She lost her temper because I went to the brothel last night. I am sorry for her. Her choice to leave is the most correct. How can a person like me be worthy of her love? Carlo's smile was even wider. This thing is a few decades older than you and has some attainments in the art of observing people. Although you look very gentle on the surface, there's a kind of pride in your bones that others don't have. People can't be proud, but they must have a lofty character. I don't think a person like you will go to the brothel to do meaningless things. Am I right? If my guess is correct, you seem be because you don't want to implicate that girl, so you force her to leave. Old fox, this was Nian Bing's evaluation of Carlo. These are my private affairs. President Carlo doesn't need to ask more. You came to find me. Presumably you have already prepared those things, right? Carlo smiled slightly and said, Of course, I don't know if Mr. Nian Bing is ready. Bring it in. At his call, a tall and sturdy man walked in from outside, carrying a cloth bag on his shoulder. Without opening it, Nian Bing could already feel the magic aura in that cloth bag. The things you want are already here. Nian Bing nodded, glanced at the cloth bag on the table, waved her right hand, and suddenly, 7 magic scrolls appeared in her hand. These magic scrolls were completely made of the highest grade white scrolls. President, you could take a look, but don't accidentally touch it. I'll tell you what kind of magic these scrolls represent later. Seeing that Nian Bing didn't look at the cloth bag he brought, Carlos smiled and said, Since you trust me, why wouldn't I trust you? Mr. Nian Bing, I am very happy to have completed our first transaction. In the future, if you still have magic items to sell, I welcome you at any time. Price is not an issue. Nian Bing nodded and said, In that case, I won't see you out, President. Right now. She just wanted to be alone. Carlos said, Mr. Nian Bing, yesterday, I heard you say that you still have several special magic scrolls you want to sell. I don't know what effect these magic scrolls have. If possible, I will certainly give a very reasonable price. Of course, this will depend on the quality of the magic scrolls. Nian Bing shook her head and said, I'm sorry, I don't want to sell those magic scrolls. Maybe there will be an opportunity in the future. You also know that I don't lack money. I just need some raw materials for magic items. Carlo didn't say anything more, smiled and said, I hope our guild can cooperate happily with you, Master. After leaving here, I will immediately rush to Ice Snow City. Nian Bing's heart moved and said, President Carlo, if you meet that girl on the way to Ice Snow City, I will trouble you to help me take care of her. In the future, Nian Bing will repay you. Carlo nodded. He could see that Nian Bing was in a bad mood, so he didn't say anything more and left the room with his men. Shu edging left, she also got the magic scroll she wanted. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, but Nian Bing's heart was somewhat blocked. She opened the cloth bag and showed the magic scrolls in front of her. What should she do when she was in a bad mood? Naturally, it was best to have some things to resolve. At present, making magic scrolls was the best choice. Only by turning each and every one of those blank scrolls into something they needed could they better survive on this continent. Nian Bing once again made magic scrolls. He had high expectations for himself. A single magic scroll was no longer what he pursued. Although the highest level he could make was still grade 6, this time, he integrated many of his own ideas into the various magic scrolls. 3 days. For 3 whole days, Nian Bing didn't take a step out of her room. Every day, she asked the hotel staff to send her food and drink to her room. On the first day, she was still a little depressed, but from the second day onwards, she forgot all her worries and completely devoted herself to making magic scrolls. The more complex the magic scroll, the more difficult it was to make it. At the same time, the success rate would also be lower. Even with his profound magic control and some magic scrolls with special effects, he would not be able to use them. The success rate was less than one-third. 3 days had passed. Nian Bing looked at the more than 20 magic scrolls that were successfully completed in front of her. A faint smile appeared on her pale face. Although only about 20 magic scrolls were made out of the many white magic scrolls, she firmly believed that any one of the finished products in front of her would be comparable to the price of all the previous white magic scrolls. She carefully put these scrolls into the space ring, took out a few more, and wore them on her body. She was done. The things she needed had been completed. It was time to set off. The Ottoman Empire was her destination. Before she went to the Ottoman Empire, there was one more thing she had to do, and that was to pursue her other dream. It could also be said that she was pursuing it on behalf of her master, Chaji. The famous snack in Ice Orchid City was the last place she would stop at before she left. After paying the bill, Nian Bing quietly left the Longxin Hotel. When she passed by the Longxin restaurant, she clearly saw that there were a few more types of chicken wings on the signboard. They were completely transformed from the chicken wings she made that day. Although she could imagine that these chicken wings made by ordinary chefs would definitely not be as good as her own, but compared to the original, it was obviously much better. This could be considered as her contribution to this city. Hopefully, the food wouldn't disappoint her. While thinking, Nian Bing walked along the street towards the south of the city. The streets were still as noisy and lively as before. Various caravans could be seen everywhere. Carriages carrying goods would often block the streets and block the traffic. Every time this happened, there would be officials from Ice Orchid City to help improve the traffic situation. Everything was proceeding in an orderly manner. This commercial city was still running smoothly. Nian Bing looked at everything around him and secretly told himself that the next time he entered the Ice Moon Empire through Ice Orchid City, it would probably be the time he went to the Ice God Tower to avenge his parents. With a slight smile, Nian Bing walked forward. He didn't know how long he would have to walk. After confirming the direction, he knew that there would be an end to the south of the city. When Nian Bing arrived at the south of the city, his breathing was already a little uneven. He really wanted to yell, "I hate big cities. Why do I have to walk so far?" He asked a passerby for the exact location of the stair restaurant. Only then did he find his way to his destination. The decoration of the restaurant was much better than that of the Longxin restaurant. However, this seemed to be an open-air restaurant. There was a huge sign in the middle of the archway at the entrance. It was a big, oval-shaped that was about 1 square meter in size. It was extremely eye-catching hanging there. On both sides of the big eye, there were 2 big words, stare and eye. What a unique feature. This was Nian Bing's first impression. When he walked through the door, this feeling became even stronger. It wasn't his first time seeing such a full meal. What appeared in front of him was a huge courtyard without a roof. The tables were very scattered. As long as there were customers, there would be a big pot on the table. No matter how many customers there would be a waiter at the table staring at them. The customers' gazes would all land on the pot. It was indeed the definition of stare. However, why were they doing this? "Sir, are you here to eat the food of the stair restaurant?" A waiter ran up. Nian Bing nodded and said, "It's my first time here. Can you give me an introduction first?" The waiter smiled and said, "Actually, it's very simple. We have special seasonings in this pot. After a long time of simmering, it becomes a stew. When you eat it, you can dilute it with boiling water. Then you can put in liver, intestines, stomach, lungs, meat slices, tofu, vegetables, and some high-grade ingredients. The best is abalone. There's only 1 abalone in the pot. As long as you can pick it up, we will put in another one. Then, it will be heated by the stove below. The various ingredients in the pot will churn along with the boiling water. For every silver coin, you can use your chopsticks 10 times. You cannot stay in the boiling water. You can eat whatever you pick. If you're lucky, you'll naturally be able to eat good food. If you're unlucky, it's possible for you to eat vegetables 10 times in a row." Nian Bing looked at the waiter in surprise and said, "This is indeed very fresh. Then give me a pot. I'll try it." He came to an empty table and sat down. After a while, The waiter brought over a fire. Then he put a big pot on the fire and heated it. The soup in the pot was brownish yellow, and waves of fragrance assailed their nostrils. Judging from the fragrance, Nian Bing was certain that there were medicinal ingredients in the base of the pot. Was medicinal cuisine popular in the Ice Moon Empire now? The soup in the pot gradually churned. Nian Bing picked up a sesame seed cake with his left hand. He picked up a pair of chopsticks with his right hand and carefully looked at the ingredients churning in the soup. There was a lot of soup, but relatively few ingredients. The temperature of the fire below was not low. No wonder they had to eat in the open air. If they ate in the house with so many fires, the problem of temperature alone would be very difficult to solve. It seemed that he really had to widen his eyes in order to eat. In terms of eyesight and accuracy, perhaps even a martial arts expert could not compare to Nian Bing. With a flip of his wrist, the chopsticks reached out and retracted like lightning. The only small abalone in the pot was picked up by him. Ignoring the waiter's surprised expression, Nian Bing blew off the heat on the abalone and put it into his mouth to chew. The taste was not as good as he had imagined, but it was still passable. Nian Bing immediately judged that. The main reason why this dish could attract customers was because it was novel. In terms of taste, it could only be considered passable. The taste of the medicinal ingredients in the soup was not completely absorbed by the ingredients. Because it was cooked in advance and the control of the fire was not very good, the freshness of the abalone had been somewhat lost. When Nian Bing picked up the 8th abalone and put it into his mouth, the waiter's expression was extremely ugly. As expected of this dish, his eyes were already very wide open, but he still could not see how Nian Bing picked up the precious abalone among all the ingredients. It must be known that every time he put in an abalone, he would stir all the ingredients. Moreover, the abalone was very slippery in the soup. It was not easy to pick it up, let alone pick it up in an instant. Fortunately, Nian Bing picked up a piece of vegetable leaf and a piece of meat in the last 2 times. Otherwise, this dish would have become a feast of 10 abalones. After drinking a bowl of soup and eating the sesame seed cake, Nian Bing let out a satisfied breath and said to the waiter beside him, "The soup tastes better than the ingredients. This is originally a pretty good dish, but unfortunately, it is impossible to control the fire in this way. Naturally, it is a bit inferior. Let me give you a suggestion. It is best to add some ginger slices into the soup. Not only will it have the effect of dispelling the cold, but it will also taste better." After he finished speaking, he ignored the waiter's surprised gaze and put a silver coin on the table, got up, and left. Even though Nian Bing wasn't too surprised by eating with his eyes, he was still enlightened by this new way of eating. After leaving the city, Nian Bing took a deep breath. Compared to the turbid air in the city, the wilderness was much fresher. The bright sun hung high in the sky, and it was already close to noon. After tasting this dish, he was in high spirits. His target was the capital of the Ottoman Empire. Let's go. Not far into the Ottoman Empire, Nian Bing suddenly felt an austere aura. The aura was very thick, and the surrounding trees seemed to be very quiet. It was as if even the chirping of insects and birds did not exist. Under what circumstances would such a feeling appear? His heart slightly tightened as he thought of the answer. An army. This kind of situation could only occur near where the army was stationed. Moreover, the army here must have gone through the test of iron and blood to be able to emit such a strong, murderous aura. It seemed that the border between the Ottoman Empire and the Ice Moon Empire was not as peaceful as he had imagined. While he was thinking, the sound of horse hooves came from the front. As the sound of horse hooves became clearer, Nian Bing saw a cloud of dust rising from the road. The dust was very straight, and it was coming towards him. Was that a cavalry? Thinking of the word cavalry, Nian Bing could not help but recall the day more than 8 years ago. That was the first time he went to Ice Snow City with his master. The Silver Feather Knights had left a deep impression in his heart, especially the aunt that he treated as his mother. She was so kind, just like his mother. The dust was getting closer and closer, and Nian Bing saw that it was a group of cavalry. There were only 10 of them in total, and they were lined up neatly. They were all wearing black armor. Although they were not heavy armor, they still looked quite heavy. They were rushing towards him at high speed. The knights on the horses were in high spirits, and they did not wear helmets. The straight line of dust appeared from under the feet of their horses. The 10 of them were in a row, and the dust was not scattered at all. Even the posture of their horses was exactly the same. It was obvious that this was a group that had been trained for a long time. Nian Bing dodged to the side. He did not want these cavalry to misunderstand anything. Since the day he left Ice Snow City, he had told himself that he should avoid as much trouble as possible. The less trouble there was, the better he could achieve his goal. If you don't provoke others, will others not provoke you? Not necessarily. Stop! The leading knight suddenly shouted. The front hooves of the 10 horses were lifted up high at the same time, and they landed to the side. They were originally galloping at high speed, but they abruptly stopped not far away from Nianbing. The leading knight had long red hair and was much taller than Nianbing. Because of the sudden stop of the horses, the armor on his body made a clanking sound. He flipped off the horse and walked towards Nianbing. "Little brother, how far are we from Ice Orchid City?" The knight's voice was still considered polite. Nianbing said, "It's not far. Follow the main road. With your speed, you will arrive in about an hour." The knight looked at Nianbing with a puzzled gaze. "Did you just come from there? Are you from the Ice Moon Empire?" Nianbing shook his head. Of course, he could not confirm the knight's words. There was no blonde person in the Ice Moon Empire. "No, I am from the Huarong Empire. If there is nothing else, I will continue on my way." Hearing the words Huarong Empire, the knight's expression changed. "Huarong Empire? Then you don't have to go. Come back to Ice Orchid City with us." Nianbing was slightly stunned and asked why. The knight snorted and said, "I am the captain of the Ice Moon Empire's Iron Blood Knights, Omu. Now that the Huarong Empire has suddenly allied with the Kairu Empire and launched an attack on the Ottoman Empire, we are returning to the Empire to pass on the news. At this time, you suddenly appeared at the border between our two empires, and you are from the Huarong Empire. You must come with us. If we find out that you have nothing to do with this, we will let you go." Nianbing frowned and said, "But I don't know about the war. For what you said, it seems that the war has not been going on for long. I am far away in the Ice Moon Empire, so how can I know? I am definitely not a spy like you think." Chapter 46. Is that so? No matter what, it's better to kill 1,000 by mistake than to let go of one. Come back to Ice Orchid City with us first. If we find out that you're not a spy, we won't make things difficult for you." Nianbing said indifferently. "Go back with you? Let you put me under house arrest? I'm sorry, I have something to do and have to hurry. If you insist on taking me away, please take a look at this first." As she spoke, she raised her right hand, and the badge of the Magician's Guild appeared in her palm. The knight saw the badge that Nianbing took out and couldn't help but be stunned. "Magician? You're a magician?" Nianbing said, "To be precise, I'm a magician from the Ice Moon Empire's Magician's Guild. I think this badge can represent everything." The knight hesitated for a moment and shook his head. "We've left the Empire for some time. Who knows where your badge came from? Please come with us and confirm the authenticity of your badge." Nianbing's eyes were cold. "So, you insist on taking me back to Ice Orchid City? A magician's dignity can't be blasphemed. I'm sorry, I can't go back with you." The knight laughed. "Magician? You're just a magician from the Magician's Guild. Do you think your status is noble? Maybe in other empires, but in the Ice Moon Empire, your Magician's Guild is just a vassal. Unless you have the symbol of the Ice God Tower. Even if your president is here, he still has to come with us." Hearing this, Nianbing finally understood why Long Ji had compromised with her. The status of the Ice Moon Empire's Magician's Guild was so low. Even the squadron leader of a knight regiment looked down on them. How could those bigwigs have a good attitude towards the guild? In fact, it was also the knight's fault for not seeing clearly. If he had recognized that Nianbing was holding an elder's badge, he would not have been so arrogant. An elder represented a sorcerer, and he was only a sword master. Wasn't he looking for death by challenging a sorcerer? Insulting a sorcerer is a shameful act. You will pay the price. For the first time, Nianbing took out her morning dew dagger and Xingyang saber at the same time and held them upside down. Now, the two peerless divine blades were about to display their second effect. Therefore, This should be called the sigh of the ice goddess and the roar of the fire god. The knight snorted coldly. Although he was wearing armor, his speed was not slow at all. He directly grabbed Nianbing. A fist-sized fireball shot out from the fire god's roar. The fireball flashed as it met the knight's large hand. Instant casting a Tier 1 spell was nothing to Nianbing. To the knight, a Tier 1 spell could not break through his defense. However, was Nianbing's attack really that simple? The answer was no. When the fireball appeared, the sigh of the ice goddess in his right hand transformed into an icicle. Due to its special shape, the icicle was more suitable for flight. When the fireball came into contact with the knight's palm, it instantly collided with the fireball. Boom! A loud sound was accompanied by a mournful scream. The knight, who had thought that he would win, lost his right hand. Together with his armor, he was blasted into ashes. The baptism of ice and fire caused him to retreat a few steps and sit on the ground. His whole body was twitching nonstop. These days, Nianbing had been in contact with warriors the most. He had been thinking, how could he compete with warriors who were good at close combat? Magic scrolls were obviously the best choice. However, scrolls were limited. If one day he lost the protection of a scroll, what would happen? Therefore, he began to study magic. From the day he left Ice City, he came up with a good idea, and that was to make full use of the same origin of ice and fire. The basis of the same origin of ice and fire was the balance of ice and fire. The two spells must have the same energy to produce an explosive effect. Nianbing understood this point very well. Therefore, when he was casting the same origin of ice and fire, balancing the power of the two spells was the most troublesome thing for him. After separating from Kitty, Nianbing suddenly thought of something. Did magic have to be pursued to a high level in order to be powerful? No, this was not absolute. Since he had the special ability of the same origin of ice and fire, if he could use this ability in a low-level spell, then the effect would be the same. From that day onwards, Nianbing kept experimenting. Through his experiments, he found that it was much easier for low-level spells to produce the same origin of ice and fire than high-level spells. Especially now, when he used the sigh of the snow goddess and the roar of the fire god at the same time. He only needed to use a Tier 1 spell each, and they were in a state of balance. When these two Tier 1 spells collided, they could produce a power that was not inferior to a Tier 3 bursting flames. This kind of explosion might not be much to a martial arts expert, but it was more than enough to deal with a swordsman, especially when the opponent underestimated him. The most frightening thing was that after Nianbing succeeded in his research, he began to study the characteristics of ice and fire that Longji had mentioned. Just like when cooking food, the taste of the food itself had to be completely revealed. Similarly, the same origin of ice and fire magic also had to completely reveal the essence of ice and fire. Only then could it truly have the power of the same origin of ice and fire. Kitty's father, Hillard, had also given Nianbing the same advice. Under his guidance, Nianbing no longer pursued high-level spells, but developed small spells instead. Only by starting small, when the small spells had completely released the power of the same origin of ice and fire, would the high-level spells be able to explode with greater power. Therefore, these days he rarely used the same origin of ice and fire magic to cultivate. Instead, he cultivated a single type of spell separately, fully understanding their characteristics. That day, Nianbing's first sacrifice after his research was Rui. At that time, in order to conceal his identity, Nianbing only used ice magic. If it was in the past, although his blizzard would still hurt Rui, it would definitely not be fatal. However, that day was different. The blizzard fully displayed the characteristics of ice. The powerful ice ability directly forced the cold poison into Rui's body, almost taking her life. And today, Nianbing experimented with the first level of the same origin of ice and fire magic for the first time after he formed it. The explosive force blew up the knight's hand. In an instant, the two extreme energies of ice and fire simultaneously entered the knight's body under the control of Nianbing's powerful spiritual power. Whether it was ice followed by fire or fire followed by ice, the feeling was definitely not pleasant. When two extreme energies fused together, it was much more terrifying than a single one. In fact, the body of the squadron leader was being infiltrated by the cold poison and the fire poison. Although only one of his hands was blown off, he had already lost the ability to continue fighting. From this blow, Nian Bing finally stepped into the door of the same origin of ice and fire magic. Seeing that their captain was injured, the remaining 9 knights rushed over at the same time. Although they did not have the strength of a swordsman, they were warriors of the Ice Moon Empire's Iron Blood Knight Regiment. They also had the ability of a senior warrior, especially their cooperation. After many years of training and life, they had already become one. 9 swords attacked Nianbing at the same time. Although they had not yet reached the level of releasing fighting aura, 9 senior warriors attacking at the same time, coupled with the tacit understanding of the battle formation, even a great swordsman would not be able to do anything to them in a short period of time. It was a pity that these 9 high-level warriors didn't encounter a warrior. A battle between warriors could never be compared to a battle between magicians and warriors. The consumption of a tier, 1 spell, was very small for a great magician. At the same time, the biggest advantage of a spell that did not require chanting was that it could be released continuously. Dozens of fireballs flew out like a continuous barrage of cannons, amplified by the roar of the god of fire. The top-grade fire gemstone was not used to save Nian Bing's magic, but it could make the magic more condensed and the attack more powerful. Just like how a tier 1 fireball spell could not do anything to the swordsman squadron leader, they could not do anything to these senior warriors in front of him. However, when a tier 1 fireball was followed by a large number of icicles, everything would become different. As the initiator, Nian Bing clearly grasped the changes of each fireball and icicle. If it was someone who did not understand magic, perhaps they would think that a magician of the same origin of ice and fire magic was at most equivalent to an ice magician of the same level and a fire magician of the same level. But this was absolutely not correct. If an ice magician met a fire magician, what would happen if they used the same amount of magic to release a tier 1 spell? It was very simple. The 2 spells would cancel each other out because of their respective extremes. The biggest characteristic of a magician of the same origin of ice and fire was that he could change this situation. Under the control of his spiritual power, he could fully feel the situation of the 2 spells he released. Now, what Nian Bing wanted to do was to destroy. Dozens of loud noises brought up a lot of dust and smoke. The warhorses were frightened and ran to the side. It had to be admitted that these well-trained warhorses were of high quality. Although they were frightened, they still didn't run far. Unfortunately, their owners could no longer ride them. Blood and broken limbs outlined a tragic picture. None of the 9 senior fighters, the 9 fighters of the Iron Blood Knights, could see the sun of the next day. Nian Bing closed his eyes. He was never afraid of killing people. Since the first time he used ice and fire magic to destroy Liao San, killing people was just a release for him. But the scene in front of him was still too bloody. Although he didn't plan to leave anyone alive when he took out the 2 peerless divine blades, his heart was still heavy. He turned around and looked at the face that was distorted because of the pain or the death of his companions. He said indifferently, "Why do you have to force me? Now, do you still think that magicians are useless? Now, do you still look down on the Ice Moon Empire's Magicians Union? No, you're a demon." As a platoon leader of the Knights, his mental fortitude shouldn't be so weak. However, everything that happened in front of him was incomprehensible to him. He didn't even understand what had just happened. His 9 companions had already lost their lives. Yes, I am a demon. To those that I hate, I am a demon. They are dead, and you are their squadron leader. In hell, they still need you to lead the way. Goodbye. As he said that, he walked along the main road. At this time, there was not a single person walking on the main road, perhaps because it was noon. A red fireball and a blue icicle fell from the sky, and in the same explosion, the last life was taken. Nian Bing didn't stop at all. The blizzard lifted his body into the air and flew into the distance. Nian Bing realized that he was getting better at killing people. It was as if the identity of the demon killer had gradually invaded his mind. If this was a magical experiment, there was no doubt that he had achieved great success. He would not be soft-hearted towards threats that could affect his freedom. However, he did not know that it was because of this operation that the Ice Moon Empire received news of the war at the front lines a few days later. This caused the Ottoman Empire to suffer heavy losses. This caused a deep crack to appear in the originally friendly relations between the two empires. Flying in the air, Nian Bing tried not to think about the scene when he killed Liao San. The first time he killed Liao San was completely engulfed by magic. He did not feel it too clearly, but the scene of flesh and blood splattering everywhere was so vivid. He was also a normal person. His chest felt tight, and he suppressed the nausea and turned his mind to the application of magic. The reason why the real ice and fire magic could be so effective was because of the uniqueness of the origin of ice and fire. However, it was also inseparable from his two peerless blades. Without the roar of the fire god and the sigh of the ice goddess, he would not be able to exert such great power. With his understanding of fire and ice magic, the true power of these two gems was gradually revealed. Their biggest feature was that under the influence of the same magic, they could manifest a completely different power. The higher the level of the magic, the more obvious it was. These two gems seemed to be able to absorb the magic elements in the air. The energy contained within them was endless, especially when they were combined with the blades. If he did not use these two magic staffs, he would only be able to cast the ice and fire magic at the beginning of the third step at most. But after using these two magic staffs, he was able to cast the ice and fire magic at the beginning of the fourth step. Of course, there was another reason why he was able to kill a swordsman and 9 elite warriors so easily, and that was because they underestimated him. After all, the ice and fire magic was not something that anyone could understand. Thinking about the mysteries of magic, Nian Bing's nausea gradually disappeared. Back when he killed Liao San, he had told himself that as long as someone was in his way, the easiest way to deal with them was to destroy them. Therefore, he did not show any mercy. He did not even hesitate after using the magic. The hatred in his heart seemed to be released in the slaughter. As he was flying forward, Nian Bing's heart suddenly tightened. He subconsciously lifted his head to look in front of him and saw 3 magicians floating in his path. They were all holding magic staffs and looking at him with unfriendly expressions. They were wearing green, red, and blue magician robes respectively. The insignia on their chests showed that the magician wearing the green magician robe was a great magician, just like him. The other 2 were only advanced magicians. Nian Bing calmed down slightly. He firmly believed that it wouldn't be too much of a problem for him to deal with these 3 magicians with his ice and fire magic. Thus, he decided to meet them head-on. When Nian Bing was about 30 meters away from the 3 magicians, he could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. This was because he saw an army camp that stretched as far as the eye could see. This was a camp where at least 100,000 soldiers were stationed. Because the 3 magicians were on a small hill, he did not notice them. Now that he saw them, he immediately thought of the killing intent he had felt before. Could it be that they were the army of the Ice Moon Empire? No, that was impossible. This was already the Ottoman Empire. Looking at the appearance of the camp, it seemed that they were moving in an orderly manner. The night from before had said that the Huarong Empire had joined forces with the Kiru Empire to attack the Ottoman Empire. It seemed that the army stationed here was going to support them. Their original purpose should have been to guard against the Ice Moon Empire. Stop! The leading wind magician, Nian Bing, raised his magic staff. Nian Bing controlled the blizzard to stop. He pretended to be surprised and asked, "What is the meaning of this?" Looking at the blizzard that had not dissipated under Nian Bing's feet, the wind magician asked in a deep voice, "You are an ice magician?" Nian Bing nodded and said, "That's right. This one is from the Ice Moon Empire's Magician Guild. I am preparing to head to your country. Do the 3 of you have any business with me?" The wind magician frowned and said, "Right now, our army is marching. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, please come with us." What's so good about the Ice Moon Empire's Magician Guild? Wasn't it already in decline? Looking at your appearance, you should be an advanced magician. For such a young advanced magician to stay in the Ice Moon Empire, there is no future for you. Nian Bing's mind raced. What should he do now? Should he go with them, reject them, or attack them directly like just now? With the power of ice and fire, he was confident that he could hit them before they could chant the spell. However, he reckoned that they had defensive magic scrolls. Once the battle dragged on, it would be very disadvantageous for him. After all, he was facing an army of 100,000. Even if each of them spat at him, he would drown. His master had said that no matter which country it was, as long as there were more than 10,000 soldiers, there would definitely be strong people. Thinking of this, the smile on his face became even friendlier. 3 magicians, may I ask, why would I follow you back to the camp? The Wind Magician said, let go, we won't make things difficult for you. When the army starts its journey, we will naturally let you go. Of course, you have to show us the badge of your country's magician guild. Nian Bing thought to himself, with the level of his blizzard, if he sped up and escaped now, the other party shouldn't be able to do anything to him. Just as he had this thought, dozens of magicians in different clothes rose up from the main army of the Ottoman Empire. Most of them were wind magicians. It was obvious that they had all been cast by the wind magicians with a level 4 wind soaring spell, allowing them to maintain flight for a period of time. Running? Forget it. With so many magicians, wouldn't he be courting death? Thinking of this, Nian Bing nodded at the wind magician in front of him in a friendly manner and said, okay, I will definitely cooperate. The 3 magicians brought Nian Bing to the previous hillside, and Nian Bing showed his magic badge. However, this time, he showed the badge of a high-level magician. A few days before leaving Ice Snow City, Longji had told him to show the badge of an elder in the Ice Moon Empire. That way, he would be able to gain more respect, and it would be more convenient for him to do things. Once he left the Ice Moon Empire, he would have to show another high-level magician badge. After all, Nian Bing was still too young, and the identity of a high-level magician was less likely to be noticed by others. Longji had told him that although the other empires seemed to be able to maintain peace on the surface, there wasn't a single empire that didn't want to annex the other empires. Even the Ottoman Empire, which was on good terms with the Ice Moon Empire, had the same idea. Thus, he definitely couldn't participate in this kind of political struggle. If he could hide as far away as possible, a war would happen sooner or later. Right now, the war has really started. Of the 5 great empires on the continent, in terms of strength, the strongest are the Hua-Rong Empire and Alan Empire. As for the Ice Moon Empire, due to the existence of the only god's descent master, the Ice Goddess Priestess, their status is extremely high. Any country that wants to touch them would have to consider the terrifying god's descent technique. The Hua-Rong Empire was the only one among the other 4 empires that had bought the Ice Goddess's altar. This was because they had a powerful army of fire mages. With 3 fire magi, as well as a large number of high mages and great mages, their overall strength wasn't inferior to the Ice God Tower at all. Nian Bing was very clear about the military strength of the Hua-Rong Empire. When he was young, he heard from his father that the Hua-Rong Empire's Order of the Flaming Lion was the #1 knight order on the continent. It was also the only knight order that was equipped with magic cavalry. He didn't know if they had participated in the war this time. Furthermore, with the strength of the Qilu Empire, it wasn't something that Alan could resist. What was war? Nian Bing didn't really understand. However, he knew that his original plan had to be changed. Going to a place where there was war wouldn't be good for him. After the Wind Mage recognized Nian Bing's guild badge, he nodded to him and said with a smile, "You really are someone from the Ice Moon Empire. However, looking at your badge, you shouldn't be someone from the Ice God Tower." Nian Bing sighed softly and said, "My name is Nian Bing. I'm from the Ice Moon Empire's Magic Guild. Perhaps you also know that our guild situation hasn't been very good. This time, I was entrusted by someone to deliver a letter to your country's leader. What's going on? Why is your country's military strength being mobilized on such a large scale?" He clearly knew the answer, but this was also where he was smart. The Wind Mage smiled and said, "Our president has met with your guild's president long before. We sympathize with your guild's current situation. With a place like the Ice God Tower, the Magic Guild of any other country wouldn't have a good time either. I heard that your guild's current situation is very bad. It seems that even the royal family's special funds have been confiscated. Nianbing nodded and said, "The situation is indeed not very good. Due to many reasons, the guild is gradually declining. This is something that can't be helped. Without the support of the country, an organization like our Magic Guild that consumes a lot of resources has no chance to develop. Because of this matter, our president has been worried." The wind mage wasn't tall. He looked to be in his 40s or 50s. There was a layer of faint green light circulating around his body. His appearance was very ordinary, but his eyes were very sharp. The most distinguishing feature was the large red mole between his eyebrows. He looked at Nianbing and said, "My name is Sangjia. As the saying goes, if a tree moves, it dies. If a person moves, he will live. Have you ever thought of changing the current situation? The royal family of the Ice Moon Empire relies too much on the Ice God Tower and won't pay any attention to you. Not now, not in the future. If President Long is willing, I think that our Ottoman Empire's Magic Guild is very willing to accept you. Perhaps you also know that our Ottoman Empire's wind mages are the main force, and your guild's president is a wind archmage. Our president has said more than once that if he could work with President Long, he would be very honored." Nianbing smiled. Although the Ice Moon Empire's Magic Guild was gradually declining, they still had over 100 mages. Moreover, there was a top-notch magic expert like Long Ji. It was very normal for other guilds to try to rope them in. "Great Mage Sangjia, I'm afraid that this will be very difficult. You also know that your country has always been on good terms with our empire. If our guild moves together, I'm afraid that it will affect the relationship between the two countries." Sangjia smiled faintly and said, "You don't have to worry about this. I hope that when you return, you can mention this matter to President Long. As long as he is willing, we will naturally have a way." Looking at the other party's cryptic smile, Nianbing felt that the relationship between the countries was very subtle. However, it would be very difficult for his suggestion to succeed. If Long Ji wanted to leave the Ice Moon Empire, he wouldn't have waited until today. As for the Magic Guild that he founded, he was extremely reluctant to leave. "All right, when I return, I will definitely pass on the message to the president. Thank you for your kind intentions." Sangjia turned his gaze to the Alland army that was moving quickly and orderly. The continent isn't going to be peaceful anymore. The Huarong Empire and Qilu Empire have jointly launched an attack on our country. I don't know what they are thinking. Isn't Huarong afraid that the Longmu Empire, who has always been at odds with them, will take this opportunity to launch a sneak attack? "An ambush," Nianbing said in surprise. "Are you going to the battlefield?" Sangjia nodded and said, "We have already sent the knights from the Ice Moon Empire to guard the border to report back. Right now, the entire Alland Empire is gathering their forces and marching towards the battlefield. Fortunately, the Huarong Empire didn't send out their elite order of the Flaming Lion. However, I heard that more than 10 cities near our borders have already fallen. We will only know the exact situation when we reach the front lines." Nianbing asked curiously, "How many troops are participating in the war this time?" Sangjia said, "Quite a lot. The Huarong Empire and Qilu Empire's allied army has a total of 400,000 soldiers. They have split into 3 groups and are advancing into our territory. If it wasn't for the fact that the enemy is too strong, we wouldn't have to send the troops stationed here back. The Huarong Empire has always been on good terms with the Qilu Empire. They are mortal enemies with the Ice Moon Empire and the Longmu Empire. I really don't understand why they didn't choose the Longmu Empire and chose our country." Nianbing lowered her head and said, "I don't know anything about war. However, I believe that the invaders won't succeed." Sangjia turned his head to look at Nianbing. He found that this handsome young man looked very shy. He couldn't help but have a good impression of him. He smiled and said, "Don't worry, nothing will happen. Your Ice Moon Empire definitely won't let the Huarong Empire and Qilu Empire destroy our country. Otherwise, we will become a springboard for those 2 empires. The next one to suffer will definitely be your empire. The Longmu Empire is good at defense and not good at offense. They can't really threaten the Hua-Rong Empire and Kilo Empire. On the other hand, your empire's Ice God Tower has always had a deep enmity with the Hwarong Empire's Blazing Sect. The Blazing Sect's position in the Hwarong Empire is equal to the imperial family. If not for our Ottoman Empire and Longmu Empire standing in the middle, I'm afraid that the Hwarong Empire and Ice Moon Empire would already be fighting to the death. Hearing the three words Blazing Sect, Nian Bing's facial muscles couldn't help but twitch. He didn't say anything else. Together with the three external magic of the Ottoman Empire, he waited for the military rank to leave. The 100,000-strong army left along the main road in a majestic manner, forming a winding route on the main road. The cavalry was at the very back. When the heavy cavalry and light cavalry corps left at the same time, the original Lao Zhai had become empty. Sang Jie took out a green whirlwind emblem and handed it to Nian Bing. After the war is over, even if your President Long doesn't want to join our guild, you can take this emblem with you. You'll find me at the end of the day, and I'll make the arrangements for you. All right, we have to leave. Oh, right, if you want to go to the capital, your next stop should be the nearby Ulan City. I suggest that you don't go there. If the letter you sent isn't urgent, it's best that you don't go to the capital for a short period of time. The war is tense now, and the security around the capital is very tight. As a foreign magician, I'm afraid that you won't be welcome there. Therefore, I suggest that Little Bell go to Lanmeng City, which is not far from Ulan City, and wait for a period of time. It's best to wait until the war ends before making any plans. As Lanmeng City is at the rear, it can be said to be the Ottoman Empire's paradise. It has the Empire's best warrior and magic academies. You can go there and take a look when you have time. All right, we'll meet again someday. Almighty wind, lend me your freedom, and drive the wind of freedom between heaven and earth. Let us grow a pair of wings to fly, far away from the hustle and bustle, far away from all the troubles. As he chanted the incantation, his inconspicuous magic staff emitted an intense green light, which not only enveloped him, but also the other two wind mages. Under the support of the green light, their speed suddenly increased. Going down the hillside, it was as if they really grew wings of the wind, gliding towards the large army in the distance. Seeing this situation, Nian Bing couldn't help but feel apprehensive. Sang Jie's level of magic was higher than she had imagined. Although this wind wing spell was a 6th rank support spell, when used on 3 people at the same time, the amount of magic required was not as little as the 6th rank. Looking at his appearance, he should be able to enter the realm of a magic shooter very soon. His suggestion was well-intentioned. Although he had the intention to rope her in, according to what he said, now was indeed not a good time to go to the Ottoman Empire's capital. Chapter 47. Nian Bing took out the map from the space ring and carefully identified the location. Just as Sang Jie had said, Lanmeng City was parallel to Ulan City. If she wanted to go directly to the Ottoman Empire's capital, Ulan City, she would have to pass through Ulan City. This was the shortest distance. If she went through Lanmeng City, she would have to take a detour. However, to avoid being affected by the war, go to Lanmeng City now was obviously the best choice. Anyway, Luo Ro's wedding would only be held 2 years later. There was plenty of time. She might as well stay in Lanmeng City for a while and use this time to cultivate her magic. At the same time, she could also deepen her practice of cooking. Through the practice with Ming Hui, Nian Bing had a certain understanding of the mysterious jade hand. Although he couldn't practice the mysterious jade hand as special as the mysterious jade hand, with his control of the fire element, the heat wouldn't affect him too much. If he practiced more, he might be able to achieve the effect of breaking the water and protecting his face. Lanmeng City. Let's go to Lanmeng City. Thinking of this, Nian Bing put away the map, chanted the blizzard spell, and went down the hill. The road from Binglan City to Lanmeng City was sparsely populated. Nian Bing had a map this time, so she didn't take the main road. Instead, she looked for a shortcut. She tried to use the blizzard spell to fly for a long time. However, the blizzard spell wasn't a wind elemental spell. Even if she tried her best, she could only fly for a little more than 2 hours. Even so, a 2-hour flight was equivalent to 2 days of walking. Nian Bing realized that this was a very good method of cultivation, and it was very beneficial to the increase of his mana. He decided to give up on walking and relied purely on the snowstorm to travel. Whenever his mana ran out, he would find a secluded place and use a magic scroll to defend himself. Once his mana recovered, he would continue his journey. Relying on the speed of the blizzard, she reached her temporary destination 3 days later, Lanmeng City. Lanmeng City was already in sight from afar. Perhaps it was because this was the backyard of the Ottoman Empire. There wasn't much defense. The city walls weren't tall, only 10 meters or so. It couldn't be compared to Binglan City's level of defense. The city gates were wide open, and there weren't many people passing by. There were only 4 Ottoman Empire soldiers guarding the city gates. The people of the Ottoman Empire were not too different from the people of the Ice Moon Empire, except that they were shorter in stature. Their hair was mainly blue, purple, and black. The people of Holland who had blue hair were almost the same as the people of the Ice Moon Empire. It was extremely rare to see someone with blonde hair like him. Nian Bing strode towards Lanmeng City. Since she had decided to wait here until the end of the war, she had to find a cheap and good inn. While thinking, Nian Bing had already arrived at the gate of Lanmeng City. The guards didn't make things difficult for him because of his blonde hair. He didn't even look at him and just let him go in. Entering Lanmeng City, he immediately had a special feeling. The entire city seemed to be enveloped by a peaceful aura. It was close to noon, and there weren't many people on the street. However, from her faces, one could see a comfortable and satisfied smile. "Little brother, are you here to sign up?" Nian Bing was looking for an inn on the street when a strange voice suddenly appeared behind her. She turned around and saw a middle-aged man in his 30s looking at her. He was thin and small, and the smile on his face looked a little obscene. Before Nian Bing could speak, he took the initiative and said, "Looking at your appearance, you should be a foreigner. You must have come to our Lanmeng City to study. What do you want to learn? Martial arts? That's too common. Once you join the army, war is merciless. It's better to learn a skill that will be useful for the rest of your life." Nian Bing smiled and said, "Must one come to Lanmeng City to study?" The middle-aged man was stunned for a moment and said, "Are you not here to study? For a foreigner of your age to come to Lanmeng City, other than to study, I really can't think of any other reason. Lanmeng City is known as the City of Academies, and that's not for nothing. We have academies for all kinds of professions in our city, especially the only comprehensive academy in the continent. It's the largest academy in the entire continent. Although the tuition fees are a little high, you'll definitely be able to learn the knowledge you need from there. Young people should learn more. Otherwise, it'll be difficult to learn when you enter society." The word City of Academies aroused Nian Bing's interest. "Then what can you learn from the comprehensive academy here?" The middle-aged man rubbed his hands, and his small eyes revealed a look of a target who had taken the bait. Although it was just a flash, it was still caught by Nian Bing. "Little brother, the most famous place in our Lanmeng City is Lanmeng Academy, which is the comprehensive academy that I mentioned to you just now. There are dozens of the most popular industries there, and each of them has very strong teaching staff. According to the different industries, the tuition fee is also different. Moreover, it's not something that can be enrolled just because you have money. You also need to pass a certain examination. If you can have a graduation certificate from Lanmeng Academy, you can find a suitable job for yourself no matter where you go in the future. Of course, the examination to enter the academy is a little difficult. If you don't pass the examination, it doesn't matter. Our Lanmeng City has many small academies that are involved in a wide range of industries and are not inferior to Lanmeng Academy. Moreover, the tuition fee is much lower. Sometimes, the teachers of Lanmeng Academy will also come to these academies to teach some classes. How about it? Which industry are you interested in?" Hearing this, Nian Bing couldn't help but recall that when she had just arrived at Ice Snow City, Xu Weijing had asked her which culinary school she had graduated from. She subconsciously asked, "Then, does Lanmeng Academy have a culinary department?" Culinary? When a middle-aged man heard these two words, he couldn't help but be stunned. He couldn't imagine that this tall and handsome young man in front of him would be interested in the culinary profession, which had always been at the bottom of the continent. However, his reaction was very fast. After being stunned for a moment, he hurriedly smiled and said, of course there is. Being a chef is also a very common profession. Do you want to learn culinary skills? No problem. In our academy city, there's nothing that you can't think of that we don't teach. How about it, little brother? Do you need me to introduce you? No matter if it's Lanming Academy or an ordinary small academy, I have connections. Nian Bing smiled slightly and said, then I'll have to trouble you to introduce me to Lanming Academy. The middle-aged man chuckled and said, this is simple. This is simple. As an ordinary profession, the culinary department's fees are relatively low and modest. However, that's your own business. As long as you can pass the exam, if your results are outstanding, you may even be able to get the treatment of free tuition. However, as for the recommendation fee, speaking up to this point, he rubbed his fingers. When Yin Bing had started to tell her about the academy, she had already understood what this person did. However, he had just arrived here and wasn't familiar with everything. Listening to his explanation was very beneficial to her. At this moment, seeing the other party reveal his true colors, she couldn't help but smile and said, the recommendation fee is easy. As long as you can let me participate in the exam, that's enough. However, does this Lanming Academy enroll students at any time? Could it be that there are no special rules for this? The middle-aged man said, of course not. Lanming Academy is very special. No matter which department, you can take the exam at any time. As long as you pass, the department's tutor will arrange for you to enter the corresponding grade to study. The culinary department seems to be divided into 5 grades. However, I have to remind you that if you want to enter Lanming Academy, you must have a certain foundation in your profession. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to pass the exam. As for the recommendation fee, I'll charge you 1 gold coin. The price is cheap. With my recommendation, you can take the exam today. How about it? 1 gold coin? You might as well go and rob. Nian Bing said unhappily. She had only spent 1 gold coin to buy the entire Sky Spring Pavilion's kitchen utensils. This middle-aged man really knew how to demand an exorbitant price. The middle-aged man chuckled and said, my fee is very reasonable. It's definitely worth it. If you don't have my recommendation, you will need to wait until there are 10 people before you can take the exam. Every day you delay, won't you miss out on learning a lot of things? All right, how about this? Seeing that I met you the moment I arrived at the city gate, I'll give you a 20% discount. That's cheap enough. Nian Bing laughed. Cheap? 8 silver coins may not be much to some rich kids, but look at me robbing. Do I look like a rich kid? Moreover, rich kids probably don't learn culinary arts. 1 silver coin, this is the price I can afford. Any more and I won't do. I'd rather wait until there are 10 people. 1 silver coin? Kid, you're too stingy. Once he heard that Nian Bing could only pay so little, the middle-aged man's attitude immediately changed. His original little brother directly dropped to kid. Nian Bing said indifferently, you just need to say a few good words for me. 1 silver coin is already quite a lot. If you don't want to, then forget it. I'll find it myself. The middle-aged man's eyes revealed a trace of disdain. All right, 1 silver coin it is. But I'll say it first. I'm only responsible for bringing you there. If you can't pass the exam or don't have the money to pay the tuition fee, I won't care. I won't refund you the money. Come, follow me. Saying that, he walked down the street towards the city. Did Nian Bing really care about money that much? Of course not. He just wanted to get his money's worth. A culinary school. Not bad. If he studied here, not only would he not have to look for a place to stay, he might even be able to interact with some culinary experts. Using the time at night to cultivate magic was indeed the best choice now. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but be glad that he came to this city. Now, he only hoped that the Lanming Academy was really like what the middle-aged man said, worthy of the title of the continent's #1 academy. Perhaps because Nian Bing paid too little, the middle-aged man didn't bother to waste his breath on him. He led him into the depths of Lanming City through many twists and turns. As they walked, Nian Bing observed the surrounding environment. Soon, he discovered that although the middle-aged man was a little greedy, he wasn't lying. Along the way, he already saw no less than 10 places with academy signboards. Although they didn't look big, they were involved in various industries, including forging, magic, martial arts, politics, tailoring, commerce, etc. They even had some involvement in some of the more remote small industries. The surroundings of these academies were also the more prosperous areas of Lanming City. He could often see similarly dressed young people walking on the streets. The logo on their clothes clearly stated the name of the academy. After walking all the way from the north of the city to the west, the middle-aged man finally stopped. "We're here. It's here." Nian Bing looked in the direction he was pointing, but didn't see any academy signboards. It was a very ordinary medium-sized restaurant with the words Ru Jia Restaurant hanging above it. There was no one at the entrance. "Here? Did you make a mistake? Is this an academy?" Nian Bing was a little displeased. The middle-aged man snorted and said exasperatedly, "Idiot, who said I'm taking you directly to the academy? If you don't go through the assessment, it's useless even if you go to the academy. This restaurant is Lanming Academy's culinary arts assessment site. Go on in, give me the referral fee first, and I'll take you in to take the assessment." Nian Bing took out a silver coin and threw it to the middle-aged man. He wasn't afraid that this obscene fellow would go back on his word. His body wasn't as tough as those high-level warriors of the Iron Blood Knights. The middle-aged man tossed the silver coin in his hand and put it into his pocket with some dissatisfaction. "Follow me." He threw down a sentence indifferently and took the lead to walk towards Ru Jia Restaurant. When they entered the restaurant, it was more lively than Yin Bing had imagined. The restaurant's lobby was several hundred square meters, and the 50 to 60 tables were fully occupied. The service staff shuttled back and forth endlessly, and the business seemed to be quite good. The middle-aged man brought Nian Bing to the counter. Behind the counter stood a young girl. She wasn't tall and only reached Nian Bing's chest. She was wearing a blue shirt and pants without too many decorations, looking very plain. Her long blue hair was combed into a large braid that hung down her back. She had her head lowered and was fiddling with an abacus, as if she was calculating. "Miss Meng, hello. I've brought you a new student." The middle-aged man smiled apologetically and said to the young girl behind the counter. The young girl raised her head. When Yin Bing saw her appearance, his heart was suddenly stunned. This young girl in blue had a pair of big purple eyes. Her gaze was very calm and somewhat cold. Although she wasn't tall and wasn't as plump as Xu Ejing, she naturally had a kind of otherworldly aura. When she saw the middle-aged man, the coldness in her purple eyes became more intense. "What are you doing here? Haven't you been pulling people from the martial arts academy recently? How come you have time to come to our place today?" The middle-aged man pointed to Nian Bing beside him and said, "Miss Ming, it's like this. Today I met this kid outside the city gate. He wants to enter the academy to learn cooking, so I brought him here." Miss Ming raised her head and looked at Nian Bing. From her cold eyes, Nian Bing didn't see any emotional fluctuations. "Him? You should bring him to the cosmetology department. There are many beauties there. Maybe he can charm a few of them. He can directly enter the academy without the examination. We don't accept trash here. You can take him away." The middle-aged man laughed and said, "I don't think he's cut out to be a chef. Anyway, I've already brought him here. Since you don't want to accept him, then it has nothing to do with me. Kid, you can't blame me. If you have the ability, then persuade Miss Ming yourself. She will be in charge of the examination this time." After saying this, the middle-aged man turned around and left, not giving Nian Bing a chance to react. Nian Bing didn't pay attention to the middle-aged man. Bringing her here was already enough for her. This cold and elegant Miss Ming made Nian Bing a little curious. From her body, Nian Bing could see that this Lanming Academy had some skills. He didn't pay attention to Miss Ming's appearance, but her hands. She had a pair of slender hands. Her nails were neatly trimmed. There were no ornaments on her hands. When she fiddled with the abacus, her fingers were extremely flexible. This was definitely a pair of hands that only a high-level chef could have. Seeing Nian Bing still standing there, Miss Ming couldn't help but frown. "Didn't you hear my words? You can go now. Don't stand here and be an eyesore. Why are you so tall? Nian Bing smiled and said, It doesn't seem to be my fault that I'm tall. Just now, that person said that as long as he brought me here, I can accept the examination. I haven't taken the examination yet, so how can I leave? Miss Meng snorted and said, I'll teach you a lesson. Just now, that guy's called Li San-er. He is a famous green-skinned chef in the city. By chance, he saved the dean of our academy. The dean unintentionally promised him that as long as it was a student brought by him, he could directly take the examination without waiting for 10 people. But who would have thought that he would seize this opportunity to make a living and charge a high referral fee? Presumably, you also spent a lot of money. However, your money was wasted. In the future, don't trust others so easily. This is a lesson for you. Nian Bing smiled and said, A silver coin for a lesson, it doesn't seem cheap. Since Li San-er has the dean's permission, then I should be able to participate in the examination. Miss Meng said indifferently, Your examination is already over, so you can go now. We don't accept incompetent people here. Even if you study for 5 years, you won't have any achievements. Being a chef may be a lowly profession, but not everyone can do this profession well. Nian Bing laughed in her heart. Even if her cooking skills hadn't reached the top, she certainly wasn't an incompetent person. She curiously asked, Miss Ming, can you tell me how you tested me and determined that I'm not a chef material? Miss Ming was obviously impatient. She coldly said, It's very simple, your hands. Although your clothes are simple, a person's temperament won't be easily changed. Plus, your hands obviously haven't worked. A man wearing a ring. Do you think you're very handsome? In my eyes, you're just an idiot in cooking. I see. You're engaged in some industries that focus on appearance, so there are still alternatives. Leave here. We don't welcome students like you. Nian Bing looked at his hands. He knew that this Miss Meng had already regarded him as a playboy. It was useless to explain anything now. Only facts could prove everything. Miss Meng, no matter what, I spent a silver coin to buy this examination. If you let me go like this, I will definitely not give up. How about this? Give me a chance, and let me try cooking a dish. Miss Meng looked at Nian Bing with some surprise. She didn't expect Nian Bing to be so persistent. She coldly said, You don't have to go through so much trouble to cook. Do you see the cold dishes over there? As long as you can sell all the cold dishes in half an hour, it proves that you have the talent to be a chef. You can improve these cold dishes at will. Of course, the premise is that no one will die from eating them. Nian Bing looked in the direction of Miss Meng's finger. He saw that not far from the counter, there was another counter. The counter was covered with transparent gauze. There were more than 10 cold dishes inside. These were not ordinary small plates, but large plates. It seemed that each plate of cold dishes could be filled with more than 10 ordinary plates. In this way, at least each guest at the table had to buy more than 3 plates of cold dishes to sell all these. Selling these in half an hour was obviously difficult for him. Smiling slightly, Nian Bing didn't say anything. He went to the water route next to the counter and washed his hands. Then he went to the back of the cold dish counter. There was already a young chef behind the counter. He naturally heard Miss Meng's words. When he saw Nian Bing walk over, he gestured for him to take a seat. He then stood aside with an expression as if he was waiting to watch a good show. Simply looking at the style of the cold dishes in front of him, Nian Bing picked up the chopsticks and tasted each of them. He began his promotion process with confidence. First, he chose a plate of cold cucumber. He directly took the large tray out from behind the gauze curtain on the counter and put it on the counter. Then he said to the chef next to him, Do you have a kitchen knife? The chef froze for a moment and said, This is to buy cold dishes, not cooked food. What do you want a kitchen knife for? He didn't think that the handsome young man in front of him, who seemed to be younger than him, could do anything. Nian Bing smiled slightly and said, How do you want me to sell without a kitchen knife? Please provide me with a kitchen knife. If I can't sell in half an hour, I will naturally leave. Give him a kitchen knife. Miss Meng's voice sounded. The young chef complied and ran to the back of the kitchen. After a while, he came back with a kitchen knife. Taking the kitchen knife, Nian Bing shook it in his hand. He spread the cucumber on the plate with the spoon used for cold dishes. Then he put his thumb on the back of the knife and his index finger on the edge of the knife. His middle finger, ring finger, and little finger clenched the handle of the knife, making the whole knife stand up. The wide and thick head of the knife was not suitable for him to use, but he didn't want to expose his magic, so he could only reluctantly do this. He turned his head to look at Miss Ming. She was looking at him, but now her eyes no longer had the disdain from before. Instead, it was replaced with a dignified look. It seemed that she had paid attention to the way he held the knife. "Green Dream Cucumber, does anyone want it?" Nian Bing raised his voice and shouted. The silence in the restaurant was suddenly broken. All the guests cast their eyes in his direction. Most of them had a look of disgust. However, their expressions soon turned into surprise because the knife in Nian Bing's hand moved. The wide and thick kitchen knife seemed to dance in Nian Bing's hand. The tip of the knife in front of him was like a spinning top. His wrist seemed to have no bones, changing into any position he wanted. The cold cucumber in the large tray did not splash out under the stimulation of the tip of the knife, but the originally diamond-shaped cucumber was changing shape. What was the Green Dream Cucumber? It was very simple. All the cucumbers turned into the word Meng, and the crumbs of the cucumber were cleverly picked to the side and separated from the cucumber itself. There was no effect at all. Nian Bing's hand was very steady. Almost every time it trembled, there would be a dozen cucumbers turned into the word Meng, but the kitchen knife in his hand was really not suitable. So the word Meng was not exactly the same. There were some differences in some places, but for now it was enough. The guests at the table near the cold dish counter saw it the most clearly. Just the knife in Nian Bing's hand was enough to attract them. One of the middle-aged men with a medium build got up and walked to the cold dish counter. When he saw the changes in the cucumbers on the plate, he suddenly opened his mouth in surprise. This was not completely in the category of cooking. Such exquisite knife skills were not something an ordinary person like him could understand. The knife in Nian Bing's hand stopped moving. He smiled and said, "Do you want a plate?" 1 silver coin for a plate. The middle-aged man was stunned for a moment. 1 silver coin? Are you kidding me? This was originally 3 copper coins a plate, but now it is twice as long? Nian Bing proudly said. "Do you think this word Meng is not worth 1 silver coin?" The middle-aged man, Nian Bing, gave a thumbs up and said, "It is, young man. Your saber skills are truly marvelous. Give me a plate, 1 silver coin it is." Nian Bing smiled and handed over a plate of Green Dream cucumbers. He pointed to the counter and said, "Please give the money to Miss Ming. Who else needs this Green Dream cucumbers?" Several old guests nearby stood up. Even if they didn't buy, their curiosity urged them to come and see what was going on. When they saw the cucumbers with the word Meng, they couldn't help but be stunned. Such a magical knife skill made them open their pockets to buy a plate. Just when Nian Bing wanted to continue selling his handmade Green Dream cucumbers, Miss Ming's figure appeared in front of him. "Well, don't sell it. Is the word brocade only worth 1 silver coin?" Miss Ming looked at Nian Bing with a complicated expression and stopped him from continuing to cut the cucumbers. Nian Bing smiled and put down the kitchen knife in his hand. "Then am I still an idiot in cooking? I don't know if I have passed the test." Miss Ming nodded her head and said, "Come with me. Everyone, I'm sorry. This is a new student of our cooking department. Sorry to disturb everyone's meal." After that, she took Nian Bing to the back. Passing through the busy kitchen, Miss Ming directly took Nian Bing to the back courtyard. "Who did you learn the word brocade from?" Miss Ming's tone was somewhat hurried. Nian Bing said, "An old man taught me. I don't know what his name is. After teaching me knife skills for a few days, he left." Miss Ming's big eyes widened even more. "What did you say? Only a few days? Do you think I'm a fool?" Ordinary people practice the word brocade. Without the guidance of a famous teacher, it is impossible to have any results even after decades. "Who did you learn your knife skills from?" Nian Bing said indifferently. "Miss Ming, don't you think you are asking too much? Who I learned the knife skills from is my secret. I came to the cooking department to attend classes, not to be examined by you." Miss Ming's anxious expression calmed down a bit. She nodded her head and said, "I'm sorry. It was my fault to look down on you before. I apologize to you." After that, she bowed slightly to Nian Bing. Nian Bing wanted to help her, but she remembered that men and women were different. She raised her hands in the air. Miss Ming, you don't have to be polite. From your dexterous hands, you should also be good at knife skills. If there's a chance, we can learn more from each other. The reason I'm here is to deepen my skills. The coldness in Miss Ming's eyes weakened a bit and said, Let's go. I will take you to the school to register. Our cooking department also has various courses. I will recommend you to the dean. Nian Bing smiled and said, Then I will trouble Miss Ming. I also hope to learn more knowledge here. Miss Ming nodded her head. She was obviously much more polite to Nian Bing. Please follow me. The two people left the restaurant from the backyard. Under her guidance, they walked towards the back. When Nian Bing really arrived at Lanming Academy, the surprise in his heart was difficult to hide. Rather than calling it an academy, it was better to call a small city. The walls surrounding the academy were actually 5 meters wide and 10 meters high. Even the guards at the entrance were wearing the standard military uniform of the Ottoman Empire. Only the huge plaque hanging on the top floor of the entrance could tell that this was an academy. Miss Ming looked at Nian Bing's almost idiotic expression and couldn't help but laugh. She, who was always cold, suddenly laughed. Like a spring breeze thawing ice, she attracted Nian Bing's gaze. She said, Lanming Academy has a long history. It is one of the oldest academies in the Yangon continent. Our academy occupies a third of Lanming Academy's area. It can be said to be a city within a city. The walls you see are the works of the academy's architecture students. It involves the defense system, drainage system, counterattack system, and many other fields. It is said that the defensive power is much stronger than the average small city. The guards at the entrance are not real soldiers, but students of the martial arts department. The academy's martial arts department is the most famous among the various departments. The dean of the martial arts department is one of the most senior swordsmen in the continent. He is ranked 5th among the top 10 martial arts experts in the continent. The attraction is that the martial arts department has the most students in the academy. They account for about 1/5 of the entire academy. From our martial arts department, many talents have been sent to the Empire. As long as they are qualified graduates, they will be recruited by the Empire's various knight regiments. They even have the opportunity to enter the Empire's trump card, the Silver Feather Knight Regiment. Nian Bing secretly praised the scale of this Lanming Academy, but the expression on his face had already returned to normal. He nodded his head and said, The academy's strength is really strong. However, I am not that interested in the other departments. Miss Ming, can you introduce us to the culinary department? Are you a teacher or a student? Looking at your appearance, you should be less than 20 years old.